I laid on the dune. I looked at the sky when the children were playing back on the beach. You came up behind me, I saw you go by. You were always so close, still within reach. Sarah, Sarah, I never made you wanna change your mind. Sarah, Sarah, so easy to look at, so hard to define. I can still see them playing with their pails in the sand. They run to the water, their buckets to fill. I can still see the shells falling out of their hands as they follow each other back up the hill. Sarah, Sarah, sweet virgin angel, sweet love of my life. Sarah, Sarah, radiant jewel, mystical wife. Sleeping in the woods by a fire in the night, drinking white rum in the Portugal bar, them playing leapfrog and hearing about Snow White, you in the marketplace in Savannah, Del Mar. Sarah, Sarah, it's all so clear I could never forget. Sarah, Sarah, loving you is the one thing I could never regret. I can still hear the sounds of those Methodist bells. I've taken the cure and I've just gotten through. Staying up for days in the Chelsea Hotel, riding side-eyed lake of the lowlands for you. Sarah, Sarah, wherever we travel, we'll never apart. Sarah, Sarah, oh beautiful lady, so dear to my heart. Oh, how did I meet you? I don't know. A messenger sent me in a tropical storm. You were there in the winter, moonlight and the snow, and on Lily Pond Lake when the weather was warm. Sarah, Sarah, Scorpio, Sphinx, and Calico. Sarah, Sarah, you must forgive me, my unworthy man. Now the beach is deserted, except for some kelp and a piece of old ship that lies on the shore. You always responded when I needed your help. You give me a map and a key to your door. Sarah, Sarah, glamorous and influential with an arrow and a bow. Sarah, Sarah, don't believe me, don't. Sarah, Sarah, glamorous and influential. Sarah, Sarah, don't ever leave me, don't. I look at you all, see the love there that's sleeping, while my guitar gently weeps. I look at the floor and I see it needs sweeping, still my guitar gently weeps. I don't know how, nobody told you how to unfold your love. I don't know how someone controlled you. They bought and sold you. I look at the world and I notice it's turning, while my guitar gently weeps. With every mistake we must surely be learning, still my guitar gently weeps. I don't know how you were diverted, you were perverted too. I don't know how you were inverted, no one alerted you. I look at you all, see the love there that's sleeping, while my guitar gently weeps. You all, still my guitar gently weeps. I don't know how you were diverted, you were perverted too. I don't know how you were inverted, no one alerted you. I looked at you all, it's still my guitar gently weeps. I looked at you all, still my guitar gently weeps. I give thee all, I can no more, though poor the effort be. My heart and lute are all the store that I can give to thee. A lute whose gentle song reveals the soul of a full well, and better for a heart that feels much more than lute can tell. love and song may fail, alas, to keep life's clouds away. At least it will make them lighter pass, or gild them if they stay. And even if care at moments flings a discord o'er life's happy strand, oh, let love but gently touch the strings, 'twill all be sweet again. Oh, let love but gently touch the strings, 'twill all be sweet again. Greetings, friends. How you doing? How you doing? Good to see you here. I said I'd do a little hangout, nothing in particular in mind, just everything in mind, nothing in mind at the same time. Just as I was singing there, didn't the dog fart? You bollock. I left him out. I didn't even meant to call him a bollock. Get in there. Who told you to fart in here? You go out there and fart. If you're going to fart in here, don't do what I'm saying, especially gasping for breath with a song I haven't played in a long time, actually. If I ever play that regularly, Sarah. So let me just go through the songs as usual. But yeah, welcome, and I hope everyone is doing well. Chat away amongst yourselves for a few minutes, and I'm definitely going to chat. And anyone who wants fancies a chat, I should be on for about maybe 2 hours, something like that. There's no strict limit, but I reckon about 2 hours, not to overdo it. Anyone who wants to chat, who's looking for a chat at previous times, feel free to ask away, and I can send you on there. We'll get you the link somehow. That'd be cool. I was chatting to Jamie today. I got cut off, so all the input came in, and it got me thinking: what would we all do if the internet went down? You know, how would we communicate? How would we actually get on? For the most part, none of us have met anybody else online or from online in person, in real life, in person. I know, likes of Jamie and many others at this stage, I mean, have all made the effort and have met face to face with people they're familiar with in the ethereal sense. But yeah, what would we do if it all went down? There would definitely be withdrawal symptoms, and so not on the 9/11, Die Hard. The Die Hard movies are predictive programming for the likes of 9/11. Both 1 and 2 were. 3 as well. Also, there's lots of different clues written into these type of musics. But Die Hard 4 is all about such an occurrence where the whole of the electronic system goes down via cyber terrorism, if you will. And yeah, it's an interesting question. What would we do? So yeah, just getting into talking about some interesting things with Jamie. I think sometimes when you're in a conversation with someone, it sort of provokes different lines of questioning and different modes of thinking than if I'm here speaking pretty much to myself, or if I'm just thinking, right, and not expressing it out loud in any form whatsoever. So anyone requires a wrench or a link or anything like that, please feel free. And I encourage everyone not to sort of use their links too loosely. We don't know who's who or what's what, or not their links, they're wrenches. We don't know who's, it's mostly for posting links, but there is no sort of authority, right? We don't know who's who these days anyway, and it's best not to use any wrenches, but at the same time, yeah, that's the nature of the arena. So I hope everything's coming through grand. I think I'm sort of in picture. Let me just go through the songs. Very interesting thoughts occurring to me while I listen to these songs. Just remind Jamie, while actually I'll go through that in the second song. But Sarah, Sarah is the name of my, nothing to do with it really, but Sarah happened to be the name of my son's mom, Stephen's mom. And it turns out that Sarah translates to princess, right? Stephen himself is represented, the name is represented. Found all this out later on. Apparently this is the story. The name translates as crown, or means crown. Isn't that funny? You know, crown is associated with kingship, and it's also the crown of the head, you know. So all of these things are significant. But Sarah itself being princess is sort of an amazing thing that came later on. I'll just have to explain why now, because Aristarchus is Christ, right? So let me just say Aristarchus is anagram of Christ, aura. What's in the name? You'll say you're playing around with words here. You can say that's a possibility. But if something was also crafted or created in terms of a name for something, do you not think that it would be encoded in some way hitherto unknown to you? So yeah, this is where I'm at. But yeah, Aristarchus being the son is an anagram of Christ's aura, or also you, Christ Sara, Sara. Now, as we go down the conspiracy pathway, we're led down there, and we find out that Jesus may have indeed faked his death and fled to France. This is a very serious, wide conspiracy pathway when it comes to Jesus. It's been traced all the way back to part of Wales. So there's a whole, another story there which awaits us. And I think this is the script as well. There's many different narratives prepared for us as we make our way along, all for deliberately. So after farting again, oh Jesus, it's pretty bad. Anyone who's a dog knows. I mean, there's no escaping it, right? I guess I could go outside the back with the computer to listen to him. He doesn't give a shit. There's no point in even punishing him, because if you punish him, he doesn't know what he's been punished for. Farting is like breathing to him. Nothing to him. Like, smell? What smell? Have you seen my bed? That's his attitude. So anyway, it's still sort of pretty offensive, and that's what you get now when you eat meat. Christ. So yeah, just to cut to the chase here, Christ's aura. Are you Christ Sarah? I said it to Sarah Christine, who doesn't like me anymore because of what I had to say about Patricia Steer and that whole character, that whole tranny mannequin, as I call it, whatever's going on. And but Sarah Christina is very close in anagrammatical form to Aristarchus. But this is how it all connects. This is what I'm saying to you. When you go down the pathway, Jesus is the son. Jesus didn't exist, but within the narrative that he did exist, he escaped crucifixion. And, he fled to France, where he had a daughter with Mary Magdalene called Sarah, Sara. And this is the Bob Dylan song, Sarah. Bob Dylan, if you remember, also had a song called Isis. I married Isis on the 5th day of May. That'd be a song for the next hangout to start it off. But yeah, excellent song as well, very encoded. Bob Dylan is a corporate entity. It's not one man, it's not just somebody following a natural pathway through the music industry, not a chance. So all of these different songs and all of the names chosen and all of the content is all encoded for us to read, should we have the right viewing instruments, I guess. But yeah, that's just what occurred to me. So yeah, Christ aura, or you Christ Sarah. So there we have that connection. Sarah meaning princess, amazing, because I maintain that because Aristarchus is the father, right? This is all from the moon as well. It's the only place we can get any, well, not really, but directly anyway, because the moon is a reflection of Aristarchus. We can see it in its clearest form if we unravel it. If we re-ravel it up in a sort of a spiral, put it together, push it together. It's like one of those. I don't know what you call them, the Christmas things, where you pull them out and they just sort of in a spiral form, and then you let it go, it goes back in again, that sort of thing. So when we do that with the moon, we find that, or at least I have found anyway, that we're dealing with one creator, and isn't it funny, first of all, creator, Christ, the Father, we have the Father, the Son, the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Well, I maintain that Aristarchus is the Father, the Son is Prince, creator, Prince. So isn't it funny that there we have Sarah, which translates to princess, as the neighboring component, but also to complete the triad, we have Herodotus, right? These are the 3 neighboring craters on the moon, with Aristarchus as the central one. So it's if we think back to the story of the child Christ, and the attempt by Herod to kill all children under a certain age, to try and stem the future, I guess, by killing this Messiah. So this is how it all ties in. And even if you're of the view that this is a whole there's some sense to it, but it's all gobbledygook. Well, that's fine. I can't help you, right? I'm not even speaking in any detail on any one particular issue, but I have spoken about Aristarchus and these things before. But just getting back to the song itself, Sarah, yeah. So as we look through the lyrics, maybe some things might occur to some people. I know certainly some things have occurred to me just looking at them again, and so let me just go through it. I laid on a dune. I looked at the sky when the children were babies and played on the beach. You came up behind me. I saw you go by. You were oh so close and still within reach. Sarah, Sarah, whatever made you want to change your mind? Sarah, Sarah, so easy to look at, so hard to define. I now remember as well, like I mentioned about songs like Yesterday, it's not about the individual's particular story or relating of a lost love or something like that. It's more than that. It's the grander sense. It's the story of a soul, that overall division within us. I guess us from ourselves, i.e. the material from the immaterial, the greater aspect to us. And then within man, we have male and female, that division. And then within us, we have this dividing line down the center as well. It's almost like a fractal thing, you know, this division. And this is central aspect to all of this. And I can go into that in a few minutes, actually, getting back to Jesus as well, and what the name of Jesus actually means, and why might Jesus have died at 33, that sort of thing. I think the same story has been told again and again. If we think of Jesus and the 12 disciples, just talking about Aristarchus. So I maintain that Aristarchus is the sole source of all the luminaries, all of them. We're looking at a light show, and the variable, not the variable from our point of view in terms of what we experience via the visuals, the variable is the contour of the barrier against which the luminaries broadcast. This is fundamental in things. And when we understand that obviously we're living on a flat plane, right? That doesn't even matter anymore. But the extent to which we can measure, it's a flat plane. So when you understand that it's the celestial sphere, the stars, Aristarchus, anytime you hear the word star, it's always in reference to Aristarchus. And again, everything is just, from me, in my point of view, I don't think there's no one else saying this. I don't think anywhere earthwide there's no one saying this. Don't think so. And if there was, it would still be an independent sort of pathway, because I haven't certainly heard anyone else saying this. And there's too many connections for it to be insignificant, but that's just a little bit of the story. There's so much evidence from many different avenues, areas of investigation, that it all ties up to a much greater and definite significance to Aristarchus. If it's not the exact significance that I place on it, well, it's something else of major significance. But you can't get much more significant than saying something like that. If it was the singular source of all the luminaries, well, that's pretty. That's a pretty big statement to make, and it's a pretty big sort of function to have. And that's where I'm at the minute. And as I said, the variable in terms of what what appears to us on the ground in disparate and varied locations on the ground is the contour of the reflecting surface, right? So this is where I hold that there's waters beyond. When the barrier collapsed, we had an inundation of all of these saline waters. So we can take it that it's saline waters up beyond. I mean, prove it, Pete. Prove it. Well, I mean, listen, this is not about proof in that sense, right? Who are you waiting to prove anything to or for? Certainly not waiting to prove anything to anybody. If I was to do that, I'd probably have about 10 books on the go. I really would, and loads of videos as well. But that's a different story as well. What might be going on in terms of this greater challenge? And I only say that in my own brain, thinking of just how infiltrated the whole of this arena conspiracy inquiry is and always has been from the start. We were led like lambs, almost like lambs to the slaughter, down the pathway. So we need to sort of think beyond it as well and consider greater things, and we don't have to go outside ourselves for those considerations. All the basic questions that occur to each and every one of us. These are the questions we can sort of make progress on and make progress towards answering anyway, somewhat to your own satisfaction. And remember, my idea of satisfaction is particularly unique to me. cannot appreciate anyone else's idea of satisfaction or idea of anything for that matter, because I just can't relate to it. How can I, you know? So all of these connections to Christ. So getting back to Herodotus being the neighboring crater to Aristarchus. It's not. It's an illusion. It is a reflected artifact, right? So you have just the outline of Aristarchus. It's like you have a wheel or something with many different parts, and you're just taking parts and showing them in isolation. This is what we're looking at when we're looking at Herodotus in relation to Aristarchus and every other crater. Funny, as I said earlier on, Jesus, Son of God, the creator, right? So if there's only one creator, this is what I think it means. And yeah, when we understand that we are dealing with reflective artifacts, then the contour of this reflective barrier, which I say is an invisible electromagnetic barrier. It's easy for us to imagine an electromagnetic force holding back the waters beyond. It isn't solid per se. It is invisible. It is watery. And as we know, a basic property of water is reflectivity. So yeah, the contour is all important. We're looking at not a traditional dome like Mark Sargent gives, even though that could be a greater, no, well, that's a different matter. That's not what we're under. We're under a secondary barrier. There's a barrier supporting or isolating the north, and then we're under a secondary barrier which begins low at our north and rises. This is fundamental. It rises to its highest point along what we call the equatorial areas of the flat Earth map, the Gleason's map, for instance. That'll do for a minute, even though it's wrong. You need to stretch it out. When Neil deGrasse Tyson said the Earth is an oblate spheroid, he meant it. He meant it. Just what you hear and what picture that conjures up to your brain, that's your own business. The Earth is clearly flat, right? And taking that as for granted, taking that as a give me, what might he mean by the Earth is flattened or is an oblate spheroid? Well, a flattened oblate spheroid is something like a rugby ball, isn't it? So this is what we, that's just a little bit more detailed. This is what's encoded within the Oculus mosaic and many other different things as well. But yeah, this contour, as I say, low in the north, highest at the southern or the equatorial aspects, and then low again at the southern peripherals. This is what's happening. And when we can see that, that will explain why people in Europe, let's say here in Ireland, I can look at the sun rising from the east, what I would call the east. This is just random terms. It's a completely wrong system you're applying to a flat and a stationary plane. But anyway, that's a different matter. But let's just say, let's just use the words anyway given to us. I can observe the sun rising from the east every day, from the east, traveling over me, but in the southern direction, and then setting in the west. Someone in Australia, someone in what we would call in the southern peripherals or the southern hemisphere, right, will see it rising in the east, but traveling north, right, and then setting in the west. So this is, we know the Earth is flat and stationary. We don't need to know what the sun is exactly to picture this contoured barrier, mirror-like watery electromagnetic barrier. So this does explain a lot. And it completely does away with the idea of a hemispherical Earth. We don't need it. You see, often when we're asked, when the ballers are asked, how have they proven a flat or a non-flat, a spherical rotating Earth, they tell you to look at the stars. Well, it's a clue for you. I think a lot of us are sort of being forced to look at the ground and not look at the stars. Oh, we don't know. We can't know what these things are, so we won't look there. We'll just stay happy in our little pit or pen here and move no further from that. Well, off you go. I don't give a fuck. That's your own business. I call you a fool for just being happy with that, though. Not really, but just in general, because there's so much more we can know. And even if you're completely fucking wrong, it's your picture. And there's some solidity to it anyway. You don't want to fool yourself. And if you are completely wrong, well, what's your offering? What's your best way of trying to explain to me then, or help me along in trying to understand what the stars might be? Oh, you don't know? All right. Okay. Well, that's great. Excellent. That's the sort of thing, sort of thinking and talking about here. Thinking about and talking about. Anyway, so yeah. This is all connected to me, and when I think about this song, and especially all the words chosen, he lays on the dune. He looks at a sand dune first of all. Sand. What is sand? Well, I remember I said first of all as well. Don't think about an individual sort of lost love. Think about the greater sense. And he's talking about, like the Beatles were talking about yesterday, our greater divided state, a division from ourselves. So Sarah is within us. I've often said that as well. The perfect man is within the woman, and the perfect woman is within the man. And we've been, like with everything else, we've been forced to sort of look outside. And a question I suppose I'm asking myself these days is, are we meant to be paired with somebody, you know, or were we always meant to sort of unite within? This is a deeper question, and I think it gets to the heart of matters as well. But yeah, so the fact that this might be the real interpretation of that song, Sarah then takes on a new significance, as I said, in terms of Aristarchus. So when he talks about the dune here, we should have, if we can read it properly, we should have sort of made our way through to a certain point anyway. For me, the giant trees was handed to us on a plate. And when you look at the evidence, when you look at just different examples of and evidences, I guess, for this same phenomena, well then, you know, you have to start sitting up and taking it seriously. So for me, all the sand in all the world is the detritus, the sawdust of these giant crystalline trees. That's the way I look upon it. So I'm thinking in those terms when I hear this song. But anyway, let me just go through it. Yeah, he mentions he looks at the sky. I saw you go by. Okay. Okay, I can still see him playing with their pails in the sand. They run to the water, their buckets to fill. I can still see the shells falling out of their hands as they follow each other back up the hill. And that's interesting, back up the hill reminds us of Jack and Jill. Definitely have to go through this song again. And, you know, nursery rhymes, old children's stories, all of these are heavily encoded. I think there's one sort of general rule: you don't lie to the children. See, most of our indoctrination comes from our parents and what they choose to accept without questioning. So this is what I was saying to Jamie earlier on. We do it to ourselves. This is the meaning of the Radiohead song, you do it to yourself. You do it to yourself. You do. You, no one else. You do it to yourself. Just you. Okay. Okay, so Sarah, sweet virgin angel, sweet love of my life. Sarah, radiant jewel, mystical wife. Sleeping in the woods by a fire in the night, drinking white rum in a Portugal bar, then playing leapfrog and hearing about Snow White, you in the marketplace in Savannah Lamar. Sarah, it's all so clear I could never forget. Sarah, loving you is the one thing I'll never regret. I can still hear the sounds of those Methodist bells. I'd taken the cure and I'd just gotten through, staying up for days in the Chelsea Hotel, writing Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands for you. I mentioned the Chelsea Hotel before, and it seems to be some sort of equivalent of the Betty Ford Clinic. So when you're worn out from the part you play, you head in there and you sort of get re-energized. And yeah, this certainly has come up in a few other Bob Dylan songs. Blind Willie McClell is one of them, where he mentions the Chelsea Hotel. Yeah, I'd taken the cure and I'd just gotten through. So what might that mean? Well, I'll leave that up to you. Anyway, Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands, great song as well. I think I would definitely open the hangout. If not, I've definitely sang it on one of the hangouts. Great song, yeah. One thing I'm missing in all Bob Dylan songs, of course, is the harmonica, and I do have a few around, and definitely played a few songs with it before, but not so much practice been done in recent years. Sarah, wherever we travel, we're never apart. Sarah, oh Sarah, beautiful lady, so dear to my heart. How did I meet you? I don't know. A messenger sent me in a tropical storm. You were there in the winter moonlight on the snow and on Lily Pond Lane when the weather was warm. Sarah, oh Sarah, Scorpio Sphinx in a calico dress. Sarah, you must forgive me my unworthiness. Now the beach is deserted except for some kelp and a piece of old ship that lies on the shore. You always responded when I needed your help. You give me a map and a key to your door. Sarah, oh Sarah, a glamorous nymph with an arrow and bow. Sarah, oh Sarah, don't ever leave me, don't ever go. Very interesting. A key to your door. There's many different layers in all of this. And what would you need a map for? Your map is to find treasure, right? Find your way home. And I think in a big sense, and I've often said this, this is the game of life, and all the clues are laid out for us. Whatever the grander story, the greater story is, I can't tell you. I don't know. But that I know that there is a chain of clues left for us at every turn, really. It's undoubtable to me. I don't doubt that. So whatever the greater reason it could be, imagine you got to the end and you solve it, thinking, yeah, there's great wonders in store, and some bollocks, just a greater power or something, came along and said, ha, yeah, it was just to fucking rub salt in the wounds. Now you're mine. Who knows? I don't think it's like that. I think that the story is of us is a much more beautiful, a wondrous story than we can encapsulate. I really do. And whatever we're going through now, well, it's life. If L. And I think needs must, we're in a sort of a state of forgetfulness. Once again, we must have consented, and to get a little deeper in all of this, if we are greater beings who have consented to be in a state of division, well, needs must, it sort of has to be assimilation of sorts. And that makes sense to me as well, So none of these things are sort of written out. So little can be written out or written in with any definitiveness. So it's just the individual and where they're at in their thinking. We have these facilities now to sort of share our thoughts and opinions and points of view. But as I said earlier, what if the internet went out worldwide? That is the general theme of the Die Hard 4 series, which already played its part in major events of our time. So maybe something like that is on its way. And how would you cope? I guess that's a question, isn't it? As the internet was off here for a while, I have The Life of Brian downloaded on the computer. So I started looking at pieces of, funny enough, just to start that, and then it came back on again. But that's an interesting Life of Brian, Life of Brain. But very interesting to look at it now again. And lots of clues. All these people are, I don't know, the same people who contributed to writing the Beatles music, contributed to writing the stuff of Monty Python, and promoted them and put them into the position of influence that they have been throughout the world, at this stage. So, yeah, again, depending on how we look at it, if we look at it as a game of clues, we find clues everywhere. For me, Aristarchus is still the ultimate answer revealed. I can't see beyond it within the confines. And where exactly to sort of take that is the next thing. But that's very interesting. Sarah. And again, I think it's all about this division from self and this separation from, I guess, the divine feminine. If you want to put it in those terms, the divine masculine separated from the divine feminine. And that's why we're always trying to reunite, rebond. And I could get into that in more detail. There's nothing outside of you. So within every one of us, right, the story is capable of being known. And the right question is capable of being asked and answered. What question is there to ask? That's the big question. Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to leave that behind, but I'll definitely be having a look through that again. All of Bob Dylan's songs are encoded. Even the Joker Man, I sang Joker Man last time from nearly 40 years ago, and I was looking at the music video, or the early video anyway. And man, what am I going to say? I saw Aristarchus there. And you might say, this guy is just fucking, he's head up his arse. What's Aristarchus to do with anything? He's after making up this airy-fairy creation or character or something like that. No. Aristarchus of Samos himself plays a massive role in terms of flat Earth, because when we look into it, we find out, or at least I found out, no one else was saying any of this, because why would they? Well, why wouldn't they? Here we are in this arena where every thought you have regarding flat Earth is opposed and ridiculed and mocked, and all manner of authority is appealed to in terms of officialdom, in terms of historicity, all of this sort of stuff, in terms of characters that are presented to us via history. But yeah, why wouldn't any of the ballers have presented Aristarchus of Samos to us, who was the first acknowledged, we're told, contributor to put the sun at the center and the spherical Earth and planets revolving around that sun. And that was 2,000 years ago or over. We always revert back to Copernicus. So there's a mismatch there. And again, it's within the omission. There's the clue for us. You hear the name going around a little bit more now, but it still won't be talked about as much as it should be, because you see, if it is the answer revealed, the people who are playing their parts can't have any sway with that. This is not within their script, and they got to sway away from it. But yeah, for me, the man didn't exist because we come to question authority, we come to question history, the story presented to us. Like we come to question the reality or otherwise of Jesus, the literal man that's presented to us. Yeah, we can do the same about the ancient Greek characters, philosophers, physicists, and all this sort of stuff. And maybe possibly come to the same conclusion. At least I have anyway. They're all characters, all fabricated characters presented to us, all works of fiction, who through them truth is encoded and passed on. So what's fantasy is fact, what's fact is fantasy. This is the reversal rule, which brings me nicely to the next song, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Very good song. Listen to some of the words here, again by the Beatles, maybe 50 years ago. But yeah, I look at you all, see the love there that's sleeping, right? While my guitar gently weeps. I look at the floor and I see it needs sweeping. Still my guitar gently weeps. I don't know why nobody told you how to unfold your love. I don't know how someone controlled you. They bought and sold you. I look at the world and I notice it's turning, right? Interesting word. Why? It's the choice of words. While my guitar gently weeps. With every mistake, we must surely be learning. Still my guitar gently weeps. I don't know how you were diverted. So this is what I was saying, Jamie, earlier on. You were perverted too. I don't know how you were inverted. No one alerted you. So again, we're given clues, I think, and this law of inversion is constantly pushed. So we have to, in our investigation, be aware that this might be a ploy or a device used in terms of these clues given to us via the literary path, I guess, or that whole area, so anything that is presented to us as a fact, be the written form, we can invert it and see where that might take us with these new eyes. So this is the point. But yeah, that's why I think that is stressed there. But also you'll notice the word or the line, I look at the world and I notice it's turning while my guitar gently weeps. So in the flat earth sense, yeah, why wouldn't you weep, or why wouldn't your guitar weep at the world or the populace of the world or the earth, as I don't use the word world anymore, because the world is just the word with L inserted. So that is the significance in itself. The word is the vibration, right? And yeah, so again, flat earth, pointing us to flat earth. It'd be interesting to watch the video actually, and just to see any clues that might be presented at us or to us. Just the last verse. I look at you all, see the love there that's sleeping, while my guitar gently weeps. Look at you all, see still my guitar gently weeps. So yeah, wake up from your slumber, right? Start to get a grasp on the real situation, the real purpose of this life was not just to find out that you've been lied to about the shape of the earth and no more. Definitely not. There'll be no purpose to that. So there is some grander purpose. And now, I guess, the thing about flat Earth is a million more questions flood your brain, and it can become overwhelming. It really can, for me, for every one of us. Really can. It doesn't ease up either. There's no easing up in it, because in one sense you don't know if you're ever any closer to any greater truth, but that's where you have to have some sort of trust in yourself. But there also has to be a grounding and a foundation for your progression, right? Otherwise, yes, you are fooling yourself. And we talked about this before with the Bible and the Bible literalists waiting with excellent arguments, excellent flat earth arguments within the flat earth groupings, from the very start, from the very outset. And yeah, this is all just an extra layer. Once you get to flat earth, there's more to the story again. So their purpose is to divert you away again into this literal time, for me, literal time, 2,000 years ago, to this literal world. And look, they have all the evidence. They have the Bible, which told the truth from the start. You know, so no, we know there's something wrong here. So we got to think sort of beyond these. And let's not fall into any pre-prepared pits, you know, because there's always going to be a pit. And especially if you think about it in terms of a game, the best game, let's just bring it to the Xbox or the TV or something like that. The best game we've ever played has been the most challenging one, right? I think we can all agree to that. But we can sort of maybe look at it in these terms or in this sense as well. So let me just get to the end of. Yeah, I'll leave that. That was by George Harrison, but another Beatles song, and you don't even get me started on the Beatles. I mean, I'm sure I'll get around to talking about them a bit later on. Yeah, just go through My Heart and Lute, which all ties into the Beatles as well. Mark Sargent was put in place. All the clues miraculously came to him, and he wrote them all down in the middle of the night, you know, after reaping in profits from his Prepper's Guide, his only other production or only other internet presence, even though he was a conspiracy man ever, you know, prior to the conspiracy clues. So yeah, that's a clue for us. Mark's Argent, right? Here, Mark R. Agent, very encoded name as well. But for me, the ultimate decoding is Mark's Argent. But Mark's Argent was a prepper. So we have Mark's Argent Prepper, Mark's Argent Pepper. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the Beatles' masterpiece, I suppose. And it was all about Alice in Wonderland, from the opening song to the closing song. And this is where it's pointing us. And these are fundamentals. If you haven't read Alice in Wonderland, Alice Through the Looking Glass, you need to, as a flat earther. And this is ultimately what the Beatles are pointing us to with that album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And Mark's Argent Pepper indeed is pointing us to that. Patricia Magical Mystery Tour, it's another pointer towards the Beatles. Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, another pointer towards the Beatles. All these people are connected. And yeah, these are the clues beyond the clues. What do you think Mark Sargent named his creation clues, right? So that means that it hasn't been solved yet. And you'll notice that Mark Sargent hasn't changed his tune one bit. I don't listen to the man anymore. I don't have any animosity or anything towards him. I know he's playing a part, but I can't afford to sort of hate on him because I don't know him. And again, to myself, I say, well, he could be doing all of this for the best of reasons, you know. So all I need to do is recognize what I recognize, and I can move on from there. But to recognize that these are some of the clues, yes, I can say that for certain. I know that. So yeah, they're pointing you towards the Beatles. The Beatles point you towards Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland is where we meet the dodo, right, for the first time, chapter 3. That's just a part of it. We have, well, here we are in Wonderland now, actually. We're actually in Wonderland. Nothing is natural. And everything is unnatural in a massive sense. And we're trying to sort of maneuver our way through the unnatural and trying to put rhyme and reason to it. Ultimately, we can't, because we can't sort of think outside the bounds of our own being, right, in this form anyway. Or at least it's not normal to be able to do that. I think that you can ultimately get to do that. But it means foregoing everything that you've gathered or you've thought, etc. You know, if that's the ultimate purpose, I guess, you know, some people will go for that, but it is an ultimate sacrifice. I'm thinking. But yeah, this is where the Beatles come into it, and this is where Alice in Wonderland plays such a significant role in everything, especially Alice Through the Looking Glass. What do you do when you look at the looking glass? You see everything inverted and mirrored. So again, this is a sort of constant theme of inversion, and it's a clue for us. It's a clue for us to look at these clues that are presented and consider inverting them. And I'll almost go as far as to say it's a law, you know, this law of inversion, because I think what they've done with the flat Earth, if you imagine the Earth as a disc, a coin, as I say, I've said this before, as a coin, you know, with an area, a body, and then a certain thickness to it. If you put that between your thumb and your finger, the coin, and flip it 180 degrees, and you just describe the space that flip has filled, then you get a sphere. So pretty much they've taken truth, flipped it 180 degrees, and if that's been done to such a basic thing, then everything else as part of this basic nature of things will tend to be flipped as well. So I think that's the basic reasoning behind this. And yeah, certainly having done that myself, I've definitely progressed. I feel I have anyway. And yeah, all the way down to Aristarchus. Many stars are there? Oh, there's billions of gazillions of badillions. And there's only one. All stars go back to ARISTARCHUS. What's the first sign of the zodiac? Aries. ARISTARCHUS. Every time again you hear the word star, it's all referencing the same thing. ARISTARCHUS. So amazing. I don't think I've heard anyone else say that, but I've more than just verbiage, just words to sort of justify me saying that or holding that position. So yeah, getting back to the Beatles, this is where the third song comes into it, via Alice in Wonderland. I say, book for book, Alice in Wonderland, Alice Through the Looking Glass are the two most important books you need to read, ever, even in comparison with the works of Shakespeare or the Bible, anything like that, because obviously there's a greater collection of books. So in terms of overall knowledge imparted, maybe the Bible and the works of Shakespeare would be more valued in that sense. But in terms of volume, well, you can't, pound for pound, Alice in Wonderland, Alice Through the Looking Glass. That's truly my point of view. And this is where my heart and lute comes in, because Alice tells us herself, Alice is all of us, androgynous as he, she is. Alice tells us that out of all her adventures, wild and wacky as they all have been, her encounter with the White Knight was the most memorable. And within the story he told, then this was the most significant aspect of it, which was My Heart and Lute, a little poem. And when you go into Wikipedia, then you find out more about the poem itself, My Heart and Lute. It's supposed to be written by Thomas More, that connected nicely with Behemoth, and he was also said to be beheaded. And which, I'd incorporated the decapitation of the giant trees into my thinking, because it's so prevalent in so many different areas, right? And I think the earth was destroyed by fire. That's the general picture that's been painted throughout all of these works. There's an update in terms of video game release called Madness Returns. If anyone hasn't played it, I don't play it, but Ray, an internet character called Ray, recommended me look at the cutscenes, and indeed, it's very encoded, absolutely encoded. But what plays a sort of prominent theme throughout all of the cutscenes and throughout the story itself is this destruction by fire on a grand scale. It permeates the sort of the reality in terms of the gameplay and the dream world that Alice finds herself interacting with within the gameplay. So yeah, My Heart and Lute, then Thomas More, yeah, beheaded trees, except I'm not going to go into that, but My Heart and Lute is my earth, and lute backwards, everything is reversed, inverted. Lute backwards is star, so it's my earth and star, not my earth and stars, my earth and star. And for me, that's telling me that, yeah, we're dealing with one source for all the luminaries. Amazing thought. And yeah, I'm very proud to have put the music to the words of this poem. And I sort of sing it every hangout, not for myself. I mean, it doesn't matter, but the music is lovely. I like the sentiment. I like the music as well, but I also understand that, it would be beneficial to take that pathway, read through Alice in Wonderland, see all of the significance yourself, and maybe come along this path, because this is all central to this greater story that's been told anyway. Even though the vast majority will not appreciate that or will scoff at that or whatever, that's nothing to do with me. So let me just finish that, and then I'll go into chat. I give thee all I can no more, the poor the offering be. My heart and lute are all the store that I can give to thee. A lute whose gentle song reveals the soul of love full well, and better for a heart that feels much more than lute can tell. Though love and song may fail alas to keep life's clouds away, at least 'twill make them lighter pass, or gild them if they stay. And even if care at moments flings a discord o'er life's happy strain, Let love but gently touch the strings, 'twill all be sweet again. Just occurred to me as well. Remember that Beatles song, Come Together Right Now Over Me? Very significant as well. Very significant. And it just sort of occurred to me because I was thinking about something similar, the fountain of youth, or the fontaine of youth. What exactly might that mean, you know, and how might it be interpreted within a sort of a personal context? And indeed, everything is about the personal context. You know, it is our story. It's a story of us and the situation or the place we find ourselves in. So yeah, everything is available to everyone. Is the way I look at it, and the dog is at my feet. So yeah, I'm happy enough to leave it there. I can always come back to these things, but that's the thing about I could speak about Alice in Wonderland there, my heart and lute especially. I could go back and read the chapter, go through it, and learn more new things as well. You know, I understand that lots of people might be lost at that, but I do recommend that each and every one of you, as flat earthers, go out and read Alice in Wonderland. Alice Through Looking Glass. Get it up on audiobook. Just, you know, when I did get it up an audiobook after reading it on air, I got the world famous thespian John Gielgud to read it, you know, so it's on YouTube there, and everything was going grand, excellent. I was enjoying just sitting back listening to it as opposed to sort of reading it out and, you know, focusing on that. Didn't he fucking leave out? So when it came to the part that I was looking forward the most to see if any clues hit me, that was regarding the dodo and his appearance, or its appearance in chapter 3. After Alice's tears and she floods the whole place, the dodo appears. Are you getting the clues? I recommend, I repeat again and again, the dodo didn't exist as a real bird, a real creature. It represented the changing face of the flat earth post-inundation. So within the story Alice in Wonderland, Alice gets to meet the dodo after, yes, the earth has been flooded, or where she is has been flooded due to her own tears, right? Her own bitter, salty tears. So this is significant. But yeah, as I was looking forward to just Gielgud reading chapter 3, to see if anything else would occur to me, like, you know, completely skips it, the fucker. Completely skips it. Just jumps straight from the end of chapter 2 to chapter 4. Now, why on earth would that be? A world famous thespian, a production that millions have probably listened to, of a book that's been reproduced in its millions, you know, earthwide. Why would they leave out chapter 3? I mean, when they were sitting down to plan it out, when was producing it, did they say, yeah, or did no one notice? You know, or it was a few pages stuck on the book that John was reading, and just no one gave a shit, so no one sort of proofread it or proof checked it. No, there's something else going on here. That's another clue for us. And if you don't believe me on that, John Gielgud, let me bring it up. Look, let me bring it up myself here. If you don't believe me on that, get it up. It's in Wonderland. Audiobook, okay. Here we go, John Gielgud. And it's only, what is it, 1 hour 57, for goodness sake. So let me just share that link. So I'll kill two birds with the one stone there. So just in case you don't believe me, right? In case you think I'm fucking loopers here with all of this. And again, I moved well beyond this. Let me go into the chat first to make sure everything's going through. In case you don't believe me, right? Okay. I have an amazing picture to show you in a bit of ARISTARCHUS, how he's represented. And you see me there, I'm looking at myself there, just with a bit sort of a more fuller beard. If you do a side by side, it's uncanny, man. It's unbelievable. Well, it's not uncanny, especially since the character himself didn't exist. But if I did a side by side, I'll show it to you in a while. Yeah, it's pretty uncanny. There's lots of things encoded within that portrait as well of ARISTARCHUS of Samos. So, oh, look who's here, Chris XX. Anyway, I just wanted to put in the link for John Gielgud. So let me just type that in, John Gielgud. Prove me wrong, Chris. So that's a challenge to Chris here. That's a challenge to what's his name, Chris. I think it's good. What's Gielgud? Gilgood. Okay, we'll just go with that. John Giel, UUD, whatever. John Gielgud. Prove me wrong, Chris. Go through that link. Right? Tell me this isn't nonsense, or tell me it is nonsense. Go through that link I just posted and bring up a copy. I'll actually do it for you. That's not particularly for Chris here, because Chris is put in place to defend lies. I won't call him a liar. He's sort of a hurdle. But he's a hurdle that I leapt over, and I didn't even know it was there. So that's a little hurdle in my path. But people like Chris and the likes of him are just hurdles. So you needn't be sort of passionately averse to them. You can just recognize what they are and move around them, then jump over them, far in their general direction as you leave them behind. I'll even give you the link for the Alice in Wonderland, Chris, or anyone else, and you'll be able to put the words alongside. Put the words alongside the audiobook and see for yourself. You just completely fucking left out chapter fucking 3 with the dodo in it. So, yeah, twist and hype some more. No worries, Chris. You're grand. Leave Chris alone, I would say. Multi-Tom, how you doing, man? Nathan Oakley, how you doing, Nathan? Show us your stump. I can do that. Is that what you asked Rory McFizz? Is that what you asked Rory McFizz, and you got no reaction from him, Nathan, and then you sort of said something nasty about his daughter? Oh, we shouldn't mention that. I wonder, was that all a setup then? I'm thinking about Ranty and how he actually brought that to my attention. It was like I was invited on Ranty's hangout to discuss this, and I had no fucking idea about it. I had no comment to make, really. I said I had never too much of a problem with Nathan Oakley, just recognized that he was put in place. And just if that is the real Nathan, it doesn't matter if it isn't. It's funny that after your shows are finished, in suggested viewing, the Jesuit episode with whatever the fuck the guy's name is, I can't think of it, is always there. So that's been put in place, obviously maybe by you as a premier sort of recommendation. So that's interesting, isn't it, itself? But yeah, everyone is welcome here. Multi-Tom, how you doing, Multi-Tom? Good to see you, man. Not sure about Tom, your stance on and your sort of allegiance with Ronnie and Jason, who are clearly acting a part anyway, clearly not out for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, even though I have said about them, they would get 3 out of 3 in my... What the... Come out here, Brand. You're fighting like a fucking trooper, man. Oh, Jesus, now it's raining. It's raining outside as well. Well, what Nathan was referring to, I've said this before. I had an accident when I was younger in Canary Wharf, the twin towers of Europe, they were called at the time. And I was actually working on one of them, and an accident happened in 1990, which resulted in me having a below knee amputation, having my leg off, waking up the next morning, having my leg off. So that's, what's that now, 28 years this year. So I could easily show you that. I've showed my leg before. You can call it a stump, but isn't it interesting? Just thinking about 3 parts, body parts. There we have a stump and a limb. You know, all of these things incidental. Nathan, if that's you, I just remember that you said that you looked, or you didn't even need to look into the giant trees and everything, all the information associated with that, because you knew it was nonsense and bullshit immediately. So I think that was a sort of a big clue in itself. Of course it isn't, and of course you know more than what you let on, but I'm not going to continue here with that. So just welcome everybody into chat. 444 The Truth, how you doing? Good to see you. Hope you enjoyed the Bob Dylan to start there. Eternal Padawan, how you doing? D? See Anders Ace. How you doing, Anders Ace? Allegedly super looming perspective hijacking. Hyena, do you want to come on for a chat? Anybody? Let me know in the now they're looking at text. Let me know there. Jason Tomlinson. How you doing, Jason? Mia Lamo DMV. Okay. Lady Onyx, welcome, lady. How you doing? Hope you're well. John Watson, how you doing, John? Good to see you, or not see you, as the case may be. Yeah, you can't see you, but you're always around, John. Yeah, good to see everybody. Oh, that's not the real Nathan. Okay, I am others. I am others come. Yeah. Nummy Num, how you doing, Nummy Num? If that's the real you, good to see you. Bone to pick with you. You definitely did say that you did think that Will Smith played the role of Barack Obama, but you said Will Smith himself is a character, and of course I know that. And then when Anthony Riley put pressure on you, sort of back down on that, which is fine. But again, it was a backing off on, I suppose, a dangerous potential truth anyway, right? But yeah, once we understand that Will Smith is a character, and I was only looking at him the other evening in a little short clip from the movie, I think Bad Boys. He has this walk associated with him, right? So we take this as the natural sort of hip hop, funky sort of Smith, whereas this is a crafted character himself. It's like Bill Hicks and Alex Jones. Yeah, Hicks is not the original man. Hicks is not the genuine article. No, he is a character himself that was also presented to us. So when we say, let's say you write off Bill Hicks and Alex Jones being a couple of based on their just completely at variance personalities or something, you got to let that go, and you understand that you don't know either of these people. And if one was the other, you can't base it on the character of the first to appear, because that's going to be a character as well, isn't it? Designed for your consumption. So absolutely, that with Will Smith, and it's so clever how they've done it and paved the way for us. But this was always meant to be seen through, and it took me, the dodo here, earthwide, first to see through it, proven it pretty much now at this stage. There's every time I look at a picture of Obama, I can't help but be able to peel the mask off. You know what I mean? It's like seeing that. It's like seeing that three-dimensionality to those pictures that are painted. It's difficult to see it at first, but once you spot it, then you can't unsee it. It's that sort of same way as well. But isn't it interesting that the format they use, and do the same with Elon Musk or Seth MacFarlane, who I say plays the role of Elon Musk. They present you this all-round character, this good guy, the way you can't fault him. Everybody loves Seth MacFarlane, even the conspiracy crew, because the writers of Family Guy planted a few nice little eggs inside some of their episodes, especially regarding what one stands out, but there was many more, the Boston bombings, where it seemed to be sort of predicted, if you will, through the script of Family Guy. So the conspiracy guys then were saying, Seth MacFarlane, a funny guy, very talented, but now he also knows more, and he's trying to give us clues into this deception, that sort of thing. So again, the path is paved for us at every hand's turn, but the fact that they're these all-around good guys, this is the selling point. And I think in one sense they sort of have to do that, because greater us, right, or greater intuition knows that these two people are the same. Let's just say it was the case, but we're sort of lying to ourselves, or we need to be mollycoddled. We need to be sort of bamboozled a little more, softened up in preparation for the deception. Otherwise, we wouldn't believe it, right? So that's two characteristics. That's one characteristic that those two share. Seth MacFarlane and Will Smith. Every role that they have, every encounter we meet them on through the press is a positive, affirmative, sort of upbeat encounter. And this is very, very purposeful and deliberate in itself. That's certainly the way I look upon it. And as I say, it's a game of clues. I reckon Seth MacFarlane has that Kennedy look to him. So whoever Will Smith might be, what a generic name, right? Will Smith. But whoever he might be, definitely probably born like the Mark Sargents of this world, or the Patricia Steers, born for the role. And yep, this is the greatest role of their lives and the greatest theater of all of our lives, actually. So make of that what you will. Anyone wants to dispute, come on and talk. Yeah, come on and talk. Don't, well, you know, what time is it now? 12:40, probably keep going for another hour and a half. Come on and talk, say something, speak up. Call me a nutter to my face if you want. Not that I'm pushed about anyone talking, actually, coming on to talk, actually. It usually ends up in argument if it's somebody who, you know, will just completely disagree about everything from the start, or, you know, definitely talking about something that I wouldn't have had on mind to talk about beforehand. Not that I do have much on mind to talk about. I could talk about lots of things. So, yeah, let me just go straight to the end. So hi to everybody, and any wrench requests, please let me know here. Too Annoyed, how you doing? Nummy Num, okay, I won't put you on the spot if that is you, Nummy Num. But you know that was true, and I'll leave it at there. I don't give a fuck who knows what or who supports what. I'm just coming and presenting some of the stuff that I have found, and some of the stuff that I have found myself, no one else has found. So I'm not getting it from anywhere. Don't rely on the support of anybody. But I would encourage people to look into all of these things, and especially in the light of flat Earth, where nothing is, or nothing, it turns out, has been as it appeared to be. So, all right, no worries. We leave it there. I mean, but look, all the clues are there, and I like Chris. Where's Chris? Fucking MCM LXX Kiss Me Arse. Another challenge to you, Chris. Go find fucking more than 3 captures of these 2 friends, famous friends. There can't be many more famous black people on the earth than Barack Obama and Will Smith, both American, no language barrier. They're said to be friends. One has helped the other get elected on both occasions, we're told. They've even done a fucking interview together. But on all of the internet, and they've even been to the Nobel Peace Prize presentation or ceremony together. But of all of the internet, there's only 2 captures of them together, with a third one in the video form with Will Smith appearing with Oprah Winfrey. But isn't it funny that with all of these captures, all of them, they're very, very problematic, and indeed they turn out to be clearly sort of photoshopped, right? Or clearly problematic. They couldn't be used as evidence. So find more than those 3, Chris, since you're so good. That should be an easy task for anybody, to call me stupid or to call me dumb. Find the missing chapter there with John Gielgud, world famous thespian, reading out Alice in Wonderland, which features the dodo. And funny enough, let me just, that link that I posted, I'll post the link again. That link that I posted turns out to be the only book, turned out to be the only book that featured in chapter 3, underneath the dodo's wing, a face that could be recognized and indeed was identified as the face of Paul McCartney / Fall McCartney. There we have the divided story been told as well, Paul come fall. And that's clear. And isn't it funny, after I found that face and made the connection, versions have been altered. So that face is now to be found on pretty much every entry. You know, when you type in Alice in Wonderland and look for the illustrations as well. Isn't that funny? And I can have someone testify to that. Dave High is one, because he went looking. He said he couldn't find that face on the versions that he went through. What was the version that I went through? And it was there, the Sabian version. If you go into chapter 3, zoom in, look under the dodo's wing, there you will see a clear and undisputable face. And well, that's a big clue for us. The walrus is Paul. The walrus is a mustache, right? It's the Beatles clue. The walrus is a mustache worn on the face of this capture underneath the dodo's wing in chapter 3 of Alice in Wonderland. That same chapter that John Gielgud chose to leave out, right, of his reading. So again, you know, where are you going to go with that? I know where I've gone with that, so I'm not going to be carrying a lot of people with me. Stephen Waddock says, when you retire, how will you spend your millions and millions of what, Stephen? I haven't a bob to my name, nor do I want anything really. But yeah, come on, Stephen Waddock. You wouldn't dare, would you? You wouldn't dare come on. You couldn't dream of manning up, could you? have some more piss. I need to start having more, actually. I need to start having more. So I'm not going to waste so much time on you. But as I said, anyone wants a wrench, let me know. And if everything's flowing okay, otherwise, yeah, that's good. But I wouldn't tolerate too much out of the Stephen Wada character. All he'll just divert you, and you'll gain nothing eventually. But again, I'd encourage sort of light hand with the wrenches. Okay, I saw someone here I just want to greet. Kelly Yuga 2758. How you doing, Maggie? Good to see you. Things are crazy here in the States. I don't know anything about it. I really don't. I have no, I don't know what I'm trying to do these days, not think about anything really. But things ramping up. Who knows, Maggie? When I was talking earlier on in the year, thinking that this year is the year, I think that's the way it's been written. It's 420 years since the dodo was discovered. And again, the dodo being allegorical sort of use and actually representing the changing face of the earth as the external aspect, the changing face of the earth post inundation, and also the external or the internal bifurcation, like a tree bifurcates or branches off within ourselves. So this is the dual thing. But yeah, the 420, that it's this year. And also, we know the significance of 420. There's many great cannabis connections made by Irving or Tesla Truth here, a character in the chat who comes into the chat. Excellent, undeniable, So there is this intricate relationship between the dodo and cannabis and 420. And I think it's, like any puzzle, if you decide, you have to decide there's a puzzle there in the first place. You then need to put the clues, amass the clues and put them together. So yeah, I have no idea, Maggie, what exactly is crazy about it, whether it's the Amarukar, Amarukar, and to all intents and purposes, you can equate Aristarchus with Mount Meru, most especially the central peak of Aristarchus, which has that mountainous look to it. But this is all a literal interpretation of something that's beyond literal for me. But yeah, America being Amarukar and Christopher Columbus. If we think about Columbia Studios and its logo, we have the Statue of Liberty, right? In a mountainous setting with all the stars as well. Aristarchus, right? When we look at the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor, Aristarchus, man, and Herodotus are featured there, but the very flame itself is the central peak of Aristarchus, right? So I've talked about this ages ago. I could get back to that. Again, it's just one of these areas I could go into, spend about half an hour on it and not have intended to do it. But yeah, that Liberty flame is the heart of Aristarchus, which is the heart of you as well. But the original one is to be found in, guess where? I'll give you a chance. Who gifted the Statue of Liberty? Who is androgynous, by the way? Look at the Statue of Liberty face. Now look at the face underneath Adam in the creation of Adam on the Sistine Chapel roof. You can see this androgynous, deliberately androgynous sort of design to it, and that's for very good reasons indeed. But the flame itself, yeah, it has a place. The French gave the gift of Statue of Liberty to America. Ellis Island. I was thinking about that. Remember I was talking about life being an remember if L, and what actually L represents is a choice or a free will towards the lower aspects of things, right? Within both the material and the immaterial sides to us. So Ellis Island, yeah, is the island where many immigrants had to come through, wasn't it, to make their fortune in the land of hope and glory. Star Spangled Banner, Amarukar, it's all pointing to the same thing for me, which is Aristarchus. But yeah, there you have Columbia, Christopher Columbus, Amarukar, with the Statue of Liberty and the Aristarchus central peak flame held up in, and the original, as I said, from France in Paris, Polaris, Paris. It's all very close, isn't it? Nothing makes the case by itself, but when everything is put together, well, that's a different story. So yeah, things are getting crazy in the States. It's all theater, Maggie. Just remember that. And it's all, remember, Trump is front and center in the 9/11 hoax, but it wasn't a hoax really. It was a greater sort of story being told. We can separate the literal from the metaphorical, or the symbolic, and we can sort of make real progress then when we understand this distinction. But Trump was front and center. Just type into your YouTube Trump and 9/11, and there he was. I think it was just maybe after 5 o'clock, just after Building 7 came down, which was the Solomon Building. The 7 inverted is the L, so we were just talking about the L. And indeed, in code dodo, L has the numerical value of 7. So, all of these things are sort of interconnecting. But Donald Trump, yeah, just type in Donald Trump and 9/11, and there he was talking about rebuilding and the magnificent job and the amount of money it was going to take to rebuild, and it'd be magnificent and all this sort of stuff. When there's potentially, at the day, you didn't know how many people were supposed to be in the building. According to the vagueness of the news, there could have been up to 50,000 people all crushed to death. And they were interviewing Trump, talking about a 20 billion rebuilding package. Well, of course, he was an insider. He knew the story. It was all a fabricated hoax, right? It was a new Pearl Harbor. So very interesting about pearls as well. If 9/11 was a new Pearl Harbor, and we look at Pearl Harbor as the fabricated event, and he died in 9/11, or Pearl Harbor, 3,000 as well. And PNAC, the Project for a New American Century, we're said to call for a new Pearl Harbor in order for drastic sort of plans to be implemented. So all clues for us. Pearl Harbor, where do you find a pearl? In an oyster. An oyster turns out to be the solution to the White Queen's riddle to Alice, right, in Alice Through the Looking Glass, before Alice receives her crown. There's much more to that story as well, because this is a discarded chapter. And that chapter is actually the cornerstone. So it's like when we go back to Pearl Harbor, 88 days after the ground zone was set for the Pentagon in 1941, September 11, 1941, we had Pearl Harbor. But the greater significance, pearls are to be found within oysters, and oysters is I star. It's all about the phonics, how it sounds. And well, ARISTARCHUS. You tell me none of this is connected, right? The pearly gates, right? Pearly gates associated with heaven. So yeah, the eighth. So just getting back to that, Maggie, I was thinking if I was to push for data to make, I think I have an idea now what's going on in one sense. And this is where number 9, the Beatles come back into it again in 11/9, because remember 9/11, September 11 in the European dating methodology is 11/9, right? The 11th day of the 9th month. So as everything is about the duality or the duo, 11/9 and 9/11, well, November 9th, right? So the Beatles often reference November 9th. And I have an idea as well what the 9 is about. If you think about the 9 in comparison to the 6. So if the L is all about the lower leanings, right? The T is about the higher tendencies. And this is what the cross is about. And you rise from the cross. So we have to recognize these different aspects to our being, and see exactly what might be being said through these stories that we have up to this point taken as literal. So anyway, that's just a bit of jumbledness. So let's see how much more crazy things get. And I think the important thing is to sort of have a standoffish approach to everything. It is all theater. What the greater game is here, what the end game is here, who knows? And the best you can do is sort of come to get a greater grasp of the truer external picture, but most especially the internal picture then, which is quite wondrous indeed. And one thing I'm absolutely certain of, we are not the bodies. We have the ability to work out the bodies and sort of mold it to our true abilities, I think, and that involves all manner of wondrous potentials. But But outside of that, every man must die. And I think reunification is what it's all about after death. Anyway, the word death itself is even a very encoded thing. And again, the law of reversal comes into place. Yeah, okay. Doesn't seem like there's anyone wants to come on. Any questions at all, let me know. FPV Angel, how you doing, man? 12 gates. I've just it's something along the lines of, maybe, I don't know anything about it, but the Book of Enoch. Book of Enoch, another clue for us from Mark Sargent. But the Book of Enoch talks us through the exact mechanisms or the workings, I guess, of the sky and the luminaries, what comes where, when, and how. So I'm not sure if that is associated with what you suggest here, is looking at your video regarding the 12 gates. But it is interesting, 12, isn't it? We have 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 apostles, 12 knights of the round table, and then we have the 13th in the center, which in the last two cases are, well, Jesus Christ and King Arthur. But in the overall context, it's the 12 signs of the zodiac, for me anyway, and the one central source. Right? This is what the Jesus is, or the King Arthur. You are Thor. This is what this represents. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you're taking all of that. FPV Angel, my sort of stance hasn't changed anyway regarding this this singular source for all the luminaries, and we are dealing with a light show, or an energy show, if you will, as it is reflected off of a contoured reflective barrier of a certain contour and dimension above us all. I think it solves so much. It really does, and especially when it comes to what way the people in inverted commas southern hemisphere observe the sun's path throughout the day and the month and the year. If we have the highest point of that barrier against which the sun reflects, or Aristarchus ultimately reflects, over the equator, and this is the reason why we called it the equator of the celestial sphere, then this would solve a lot of things, wouldn't it? It would solve a lot of problems, a lot of issues. And then, first of all, of course, we know there's no need for any sphericity in the first place. But yeah. So thanks for that, man. I know you're very detailed as well, FPV, and as just for myself, I'm sort of, I don't know, there's so much information out there that I'm sort of trying to take a step back, because I'm just fucking tired of thinking, I guess, or trying to sort of figure out what is this all about, or where's it going to, or what's the ultimate purpose of all of this. And there's so much information that you could, there's so many pathways and alleyways you could go down that, oh gosh, I for one am weary anyway. Okay. Thor Odin's son. How you doing, man? You are Thor. I am Thor. We're all Thor. Our Thor Dent was the chief character in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, HHGG, the clue for us, by Douglas Snow Adams, DNA. And there we have Adam as well, of Adam and Eve fame. Douglas, a Douglas fir, a tree. Another fake death was Douglas Adams. And I remember when everyone else, now I'm just funny how if you had your time again, you'd do the opposite, because when everyone else was reading their children's nursery rhymes and children's stories and all that, I was reading Stephen Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and all of the books, just the way it worked out. But now, if I had my chance again, I would do both, obviously, but I will definitely read the children's stories, because I believe that within these stories, when read properly, much truth is encoded. Again, I don't think the children are lied to, it's the adults who have failed to see through the lies, have been responsible for indoctrinating the children every generation after generation. Go, Tom. just use caution, Tom, but I know you say you're a religious man as well. But look, these are the things that we have to question the most. And I haven't done away with, I've gained a faith, if you will. I haven't done away with, or I've done away with atheism. So I'm not advocating an atheistic view. There is a greater rhyme and reason to all of this. But, you know, the things that are being presented to us at the very earliest of times are the things that need to be sort of examined most closely. And what has been presented to us most, or more strenuously, I suppose, than all of this religious literalism. Well, you know, I think these are the areas that we need to, in a new frame of mind, particularly tackle. And well, look, good luck where you might come out, where I've come out. Yeah, happy enough. I mean, Jesus is the Son, the giver of life. The Son is Aristarchus, the source of everything. Aristarchus, it doesn't just encapsulate the external world. It's part of everything. It's part of everything within this realm, and I think it manifests throughout everything in terms of these energies. So whatever we're dealing with, there is no natural basis that we can sort of, for comparison purposes, fall back and refer to. There's none. Absolutely none. Absolutely none. And, you know, if you take isolated parts of this system and don't extend your thoughts beyond that, well, then that's no good. Because this is the purpose of all of this, is to sort of recognize the detritus of the old destroyed system, right? Which was our you call it, our collection of beliefs, I suppose. And yeah, we need to replace it now with what's true, you know, what is, as opposed to what isn't. So by taking components of the system in isolation and not putting them in a greater sort of picture or package, that's not how it works. We have to deal with disintegration. In other words, taking the whole and breaking it into its component parts, as opposed to integration, taking one aspect of things and you know, extrapolating from that alone. You can't do it. It won't work like that. And this is sort of what I mean when we come to flat Earth and we just focus on the ground. We just look at the ground. We say the ground is not over large scales. The ground is not curving. It's level for all intents and purposes. And water doesn't bend. You know, that's fine. We can all see that. But when you don't look elsewhere, then i.e. look upwards, we can't really look downwards. Although we have some idea. The borehole in Russia gives us that 8-mile depth. So I think this is a clue for us as well. So we're dealing with a disk, if you will, disk world. But yeah, if we just keep our eyes looking down and we don't examine the luminaries and their workings with new eyes, well, we are not doing ourselves a service anyway, and picking up the baton, if you will, and trying to repaint that picture that has been sort of demolished and scrubbed from us. Grove Dub, my thought is that if FE was a threat, they would have taken out Dubé, who started it all, back up. Well, no, Eric Dubé, the man with a sometime lisp. I have a lisp sometimes, but other times I don't have a lisp, you know. No, there's something wrong there, and Derek is another character put in place. You know, I think we get sort of attached to personalities, so we sort of feel like we have to defend them. Listen, we all learned a lot from lots of different characters, but at a certain point we can understand that, like, they have their limitations, and we just sort of move beyond that. You know, who's our fight with? Is your fight with the world at large? Is that you want this flat earth truth to come out? And who are you going to fight? Who are you going to fight with? You know, what are you going to fight? How are you going to fight? This is the whole point. I think whatever's unrolling is unrolling anyway. The best you can do is to be yourself, right? Do what you can do, say what you can say, but understand that there is a story that's left untold here, and that is your own story within everything. So Eric Dubé is a clue giver. They all are. Everyone put in place is a clue giver. And we needn't pass any judgment on them. You can say, well, parts of the end, fucking WO troop going around, enemies to mankind, which was my view at one point. But that's not helpful. That's not helpful. And, you can just recognize that these people are people put in place, whatever their stories. And yet there is more for you to fill in regarding your own story. And again, ultimately, that's the only story there is, your story. And if you don't tell it, I won't hear it. So that's my thoughts on Eric Dubé. And that's an excellent question, Grove Dub. Who are they? We hear this term bandied about an awful lot, and I do ask people that question. What do you mean when you say they? Because we have no idea who they are. We have no idea what's going on. We have no idea of the greater powers that are perhaps in control of everything. So, I mean, what is the best we can do then? Let me just let the dog in. It's quite stormy here. Not bad. Yeah. If you farts, all your farts now out there. Yeah. Good boy. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Come on. Come on. Up, up. Good boy. Give me that paw. Give me that paw. Dragging shit in all over the place. Look at him. Keep dragging shit all over the place. How come you never did this to me? You can give a shit. You don't give a shit, do you? Get down off that. I told you to get up in that chair. All right, what's that? Get a little trim. Oh, look, that's all he wants now. After you dragging shit in all over the place, I'm rewarding you. Who's the bigger fool? That's what I want to know. Look at the sad eyes now. Sure. My bad. The puppy eyes. I was thinking earlier on. I mean, why name dog? Dog. The name that's like, because dog backwards is God. It's all about the present. The dog lives in the present. And I was thinking in flat earth terms as well, that, as proof of a spinning ball earth, we're given Eratosthenes sticks and Cavendish balls. Sticks and balls, dogs love them, right? Dogs love them. And I think these are sort of little clues for us along the path. And as I say, ultimately, it goes back to the eternal present and being outside of time and coming to the whole question of what exactly time is, And for me, time is an artifact of the system. The sun itself is an artifact of this broken system, and time itself is measured in regards to the sun and quantified in regards to the sun. So the sticks and balls argument, these men never existed. Eratosthenes, Cavendish, never existed. Cavendish is cave and dish, Plato's cave, the Petri dish, model of the earth with the ice wall around it. All clues within the name for us. And ultimately, when we come along this path, of course, we can be satisfied somewhat as to the nature of the external. Then we have to focus ourselves on the internal. And this is where everything sort of interconnects. So getting back to, the balls and the sticks, which prove a spherical earth. Yeah, dogs love balls and sticks. So those are to God. And God is about the eternal presence. That's what we do at Christmas time. We leave presents under the tree, right? We have the past, the present, and the future. No coincidence. These are all chosen for a reason. I think in a real sense, we're absolutely outside of time anyway. It's irrelevant, meaningless to us in a grander scheme of things. And, we're having this experience within time. And, make of it what we will. Like with anything, it's only by asking the questions that you can even get started, I guess, on any particular line of inquiry. Okay. Our chat seems to be going okay. So if no one wants a link or anything, that's fine. I'll just continue on doing what I'm doing. And yeah, let me just continue on. But I was talking earlier on about well, just briefly with Jamie. I didn't get a chance to go into it, but about the legal name and the birth certificate, but the baptism certificate is also as vital. I've been to the local priest and cancelled all this a few years back, about 2 or 3 years ago now, 2 years ago, I guess. Cancelled all contracts, made him completely aware he is the representative of the church. Pointed out the fraud to him, so all contracts were cancelled for both me and my son and my child, who is 16 now. And I never signed a baptismal certificate of him, and we only signed a birth certificate really when it came to him having to go to school. So he needed to have a birth certificate. I wasn't happy doing it, so coerced into that as well. So those contracts become null and void as well before the Creator. And yeah, we mustn't forget about the baptism, right? And what exactly is going on there as well. In one sense, the church is telling us the truth, right? We are just reading it in the wrong fashion. So we have to shake ourselves free of all preconceived ideas and notions, especially when it comes to words and symbols. Satan is a big one. You Satan lover. Well, that's fair enough. This is where the minute someone mentions Satan, you ingrained in your brain is this picture of a massive fucking horned, red, fucking massive teeth, massive cock individual, in flames, wanting to fucking kill and do all this sort of everything. But maybe that's not what the case is, and you are giving life to something that has no right to life at all. So yeah, absolutely. Satan is materialism. The devil is materialism. The devil backwards is lived. Evil backwards is live. Are these things incidental? You can keep saying it. You can keep making the argument. This is all just bullshit nonsense, just been tied or connected together to form some sort of coherent, semi-coherent narrative. Well, or you can take it a step further and maybe examine it a bit closer yourself. Yeah, for me, Satan is materialism. This is why Santa and Satan are anagrams of one another. And of course, the lure for children at Christmas time is to be good, and you'll get rewarded. You get gifted by Santa. Whereas being good is a reward in itself. This is the truth that matters. So yeah, Santa and this material injection, I guess, into the lives or the consciousness of our children, ourselves included. This is all past telling us the story. These are all, I suppose, in order to play the game, we have to be exposed to the different elements within the game, the different possibilities, the different route ways we can travel. So yeah, that just goes back to the idea of words and re-examining and breaking apart words, sort of scrubbing that mental chalkboard or artist pad clear of any preconceived pictures attached to words. When we do that, then we're freeing ourselves from one form of slavery anyway. It's the slavery of the mind. But yeah, I've cancelled baptism certificates, and that's the fight for the soul. So the body is within the legal birth certificate, and then within the spiritual, then we have the for me anyway, in my thinking, it's signed away. The soul is signed away with the creation of the baptism certificate and going through that whole procedure. And this is what we have to sort of shake ourselves from. We were participants in it, but we made no willing consent into anything. So we can break before the Creator, before yourself. You can break all of these contracts. I happen to do it with the local priest. But the reason I mentioned this was that we're told we're born into sin. And I never liked that idea when my beautiful innocent son, who was faultless and flawless, was automatically labeled upon arrival as being filled with sin and needed saving. you know, I could never, and lots of parents, lots of us will echo that sentiment. You know, I can never sort of understand it, but now I sort of understand it in the context of breaking down words and seeing exactly what the words might mean. And all words are composed of letters, so each letter will have a special significance, and all letters then are in relation to numbers as 1 to 9 or 0 to 9, if you will. And so seeing it in a new light, all of us being born in sin, makes sense to me in terms of sin. Get over there. He's munched it already. That's a fucking horse, honestly. Those things are like toffee. Imagine giving you a big bar of toffee, strong toffee. Take you about an hour to eat it. Same with the pig's ear. It's gone. And it's gone. Anyway, sin is in S, right? In S. So we have the S. You can equate the S with the 2. This is where the dodo comes into it. We are cleaved in 2. We were divided in 2. And so we are all born into a state of division. Adam from Eve. Adam from Eve isn't an external division. It's an internal one. We have the A, right? A points upwards. The V points downwards, right? So we encompass everything. We're looking for a heart center, because this is what it means. The heart, the H at the very center. It's what it means to be human. This is not us. We outlive our body, so you can look upon it as an avatar of sorts, you know. So within this form, we need to be heart-centered. And this is where we have the extremities. Then we have the L representing the lower, and the T representing the top, the upper. In Alice in Wonderland, we meet the Mad Hatter, you know, very encoded as well. D, the D represents, think about your brain. The D represents the dome of your head, the marble arch. So that's another letter associated with upper leanings, like the T is. There's the V, the W, and the L. These are all the more material aspects to us, right? Or the lower leanings. We have a material aspect and an immaterial aspect. We have the vices and the virtues attached to the choices we can make, the material side, and then we have the angelic and the demonic, I guess, choices we can, or tendencies or leanings associated. He's after farting again. Oh, Jesus, Brandy! What am I going to put you? If I put you out, your feet are going to get wet. Look at the farts in the wind out there. Go on, out you go. Fart, your heart's content. Your fart's content. Farts in the wind. Because I won't get it out there. I'll get it in here. Come on, Brand, out you go. Come on, go. Jesus. Jesus. I'm only kidding there. Like, I mean, the drama for the dog. But that's pretty bad now. For goodness sake. Maybe I said something wrong. Been punished in a sort of, different way. Anyway. See, that fucking smell is after making me lose my thinking here. I get back in it. So that's what the V represents in Eve. So we have the 2 E's on either side of the V, right? We bring the 2 E's together. We have the whole E, right? That's all of us. The 2 sides I was just talking about, and the spirit down the center. Well, the spear is the spine. The spear is the spine. That's why it's all a story of, us in relation to everything else. So yeah, there's Eve, and then we have the Adam. We have the D in there as well. A-D, right? So the A is upper tendencies. Then you have the D at the top. And in a literal sense, it represents the marble arch of the brain, or the higher aspects, the higher leanings on both sides. And this is the distinction between the 6 and the 9 as well. So the 6, as you can see, is bottom heavy. This is why all of these sort of material aspects are the 6 is a prominent number anyway, associated with these material aspects. And then the 9, vice versa, the 69. The 9 then will have the upper tendency, the upper leaning. But we do have that spine that is the central backbone of it all. And that's the spine that's actually running through ourselves as well, connecting everything, the top, the middle, and the bottom. So so we're born into S. We're born into this divided state. The S represents the 2. That can clearly be seen by the visuals itself. But we can also see how the S and a backwards S, will give you an 8. It's like an E and a backwards E will also give you an 8 in terms of a digital clock look, you know. And well, tying it back into Aristarchus, there we find the 8 at the heart of Aristarchus. We can see the 8 as the twisted 0. So the 0 being the uncountable, right? The everything, the no beginning, the no end. So this is where the dodo comes into things. It is the twisted 0 divided in 2, and put 0, 0, 0, 0 down on your keypad there, or on a piece of paper, very close looking to dodo, dodo, right? Or dodo, dodo, yeah. Not incidental, but as I say, just the 8 and the 0, we can see that one is a twisted aspect. One has been twain in two and meets in the center. This is the heart center. So yeah, when we think in those terms, then that the S or the 3, so we think of the 3 representing the E as well, very similar looks wise. Well, we bring the 2 3s together, then we get the 8, right? This is why Jesus died at 33 in the divided state before reunification. So by raising the cross, right? Raising from the cross, raising the crossbar, and you have that T. At the Mad Heart or at the tea party, right? So yeah, so when we think in those terms, the divided state, then we can look at the word Jesus, right? Jesus, and je, which is I in France, sus. So it's like you're bringing the 2 S's together and combining them, you know, 2 divided aspects into a combined state. So for me, that's what one of the things that the name encodes anyway, the 2 S's. And I've also made the point before when you read a word like Sirius, right? So it's Sirius. So SIRI and U are S. So we're all S and S, right? So we're all 2 aspects, and what we need to do is to combine them and bind them. So if we're just one aspect, if we're just one S, this is where the sword from the stone is, the S word. The S word is. When you deem something to be, then in some real terms, you are giving it an existence. As I said, we know we can all relate to this. We all gave existence by using the term is. This is reality when it came to a spinning ball earth. You know, no one could have shaken us from that truth, you know. But yeah, it's only when we come to question it, then we'll be more careful about using the term is. And is, of course, is IS. And the one thing we've learned from Flat Earth is, well, be very careful when and why and how you use the word is. That's all I would say about that. So all of these things. So Sirius, yeah, again, the message we're composed of the 2 S's, the 2 aspects, the 2 sides, the 2 divided sort of components, aspects, and we're encouraged to bring them together. And this is where I see things like the ISS as clues for us, you know. So we're going from a state of unity to division to reunification. So I do see a happy ending, if not in this life, then at least afterwards. But I think in this life as well, because that's probably the purpose of it all, or at least potentially in this life. And maybe if it's not on the collective, at least it can be on the individual a basis. Otherwise, there's no fucking point whatsoever. It's just stupid. It's just stupid. And if I was the creator, I would just view it as being stupid. There'd be no point to it. So I think there has to be some sort of a point, again, on a personal basis, if not a collective basis. But I do see it as a collective thing as well. This is why we're all introduced to the ISS and all its sort of clumsy fakery, you know, all purposefully done. You know, as an awakener for us as well. I mean, I think these things are helpful. But yeah, we have the IS versus is versus ISS. So there we have IS and then ISS. So we can't just be half the man, you know, we can't just be half the whole. We need to recognize that we are twain and two, and to bring these 2 aspects together. And mentioning that in relation to Sarah, I mentioned that earlier on. Bob Dylan had a song called Isis, and Isis was said to be the mother of who? Horus? No, not Horus. Osiris. Isis, Osiris, and Horus. But Isis is. So IS. Again, one half. We bring the 2 together, and we get the bond I8. I8, H is the I letter, H is the 8 letter. There we have HI. We look at the letters I and H, and they're exactly the same in a block form. Well, not exactly the same. You can see how they are. You just flip the H 90 degrees, you get the capital I, right? So yeah, that's what that says to me. And shit, I haven't thought about that in ages and ages. The HI cube. That's all. I don't go back from any of that stuff. That's still all there. Just haven't thought about it. You know, we are, we are, we're 3 dimensions. There's only 2 dimensions. There's the 3 dimensions and the 0 dimensions. So we are a connection of both, an amalgamation of both. And this is where the H itself, if you look at this construction of the H, we can 3-dimensionalize everything, and we can imagine it going into a center point. So imagine a big 3-dimensional H, but all sides of it along the center moving in towards a 0 point at the center. I think this represents who we are, and our 0 point is at the heart. This is why heart, earth, ether, these are all anagrams of one another for, I say, for excellent reasons. And that's certainly the way I'm looking at it anyway. And I know many people mightn't agree with me, but what am I supposed to do with that? So, yeah, so what's in a name? Well, everything's in a name. Okay. I think I might play a song now. Take a break from talking. I won't stay on for too much longer anyway. I didn't see Chris getting back to me on the missing chapter that John Gilgood omitted from his reading of Alice in Wonderland, because he can't. You can't. You just can't do it. And of course, these people's stance must be, in general anyway, that all flat arguments and all flat earthers are retarded, whilst they refuse and flounder to answer any even the basic questions at this stage. So you got to leave these characters behind. So I'm not too bothered about fucking having the same debate over and over again. You know, what's the point in that? Who are you convincing here? All you're doing is wasting your own time, especially if you haven't sort of maybe made some advancements in terms of reformulating your own picture here. So, but there are some very interesting questions raised. Law of inversion comes into things when we think about the system as a whole, or what it might be as a whole. Well, gravity is a pushing force from above, as opposed to a pulling force from below, right? And the source of this gravity, we do live in a broken system, and everything is. We live in the detritus, if you will, the destroyed land, the wasteland, or the aftermath of the destruction of the giant crystalline trees, which were the conducting sort of distribution of whatever source energy, which held back these waters beyond, you know. And when the trees were cut, and this in the form of an electromagnetic barrier. So when the trees were destroyed, then you had a collapse of the barrier, inundation, and a much weakened system afterwards, and everything underneath, under these influences, these reactionary forces, if you will, to these energies holding back the waters beyond. So with the supporting pillars removed in terms of the giant trees strewn earthwide, all interconnected, this reactionary force, as I said, to the actionary force that is the electromagnetic force holding back the waters beyond. Everything on Earth is layered in a certain way according to this force, and also subject to it. We're immersed in it. And the reason why it's not so easy to detect is because it's part of what we would call nature, you know, because it's part of everything. It's the fabric of everything. We haven't been able to to separate it, I suppose, and then measure it. But yeah, this is what I say is happening anyway, and it does make sense to me. Everything is layered in a certain way, and these are the initial questions we have to ask. You know, what might this system be? These are the difficult questions, but it's only by asking them can we sort of reverse engineer it, if you will. Again, this is not about proving anything to anybody at this stage. It's about the individual painting their own picture. And that certainly, for me anyway, has given some definitiveness to all of these things. You know, gravity is a pushing force from above. It makes perfect sense. As we rise up, everything thins out until, you know, at some point there's going to have to be a vacuum, isn't there? So we live in a container. We live within confines. Now the nature of those confines you need to be broached, because lots of things can be interconnected with that. So that's what I've done, and that's where Aristarchus comes in. Aristarchus is the source of the barrier, the source of these energies. You know, it's the source of everything. It's the barrier above. It's the energies, the ether. It's all of the luminaries. It is can be seen expressing through the clouds in terms of repeating cloud patterns, etc., to the waters, through the sands of the desert, through the sands of the ocean, etc., to the land itself. So this is what I mean by Aristarchus encompassing everything externally, and then it moves internally, and it moves to the very heart of our matters. Our own heart, in one sense, mirrors the central peak of Aristarchus. That's going to sound strange to lots of people. Certainly talked about this before. But yeah, that's how deep all of this goes. Lost most people along the way, but that's fine. Don't worry about that. I could bring up loads of pictures. I might do that for the last half hour and just bring up a few pictures and just chat about things at random. I'll play a song in the meantime. I think of a song to play. Oh yeah, I'll sing that. Okay. I hope he's farting himself to exhaustion out there now, because there's a big massive wind that can easily cater for him, and I'm sure we'll just lap it up. They say to me, drink and be merry, take the bull by the horns. I keep seeing visions of you. Everything looks a little far away to me. It's getting harder and harder to recognize the trap. Too much information about nothing, too much educated ground. It's just like you told me, it's just like you said it would be. the moon's going up like wildfire. I can feel the breath of the storm. There's something I've got to do tonight. You go inside, stay warm. Someone's got hold of my heart. Someone's got hold of my heart. Someone's got hold of my heart. Got hold of my heart. Just got back from the city of red skies. Everybody thinks with their stomachs, and there's plenty of spies. Every street is crooked, it just winds around until it disappears. Madam Butterfly, she loved me so, like an ancient river, so wide and so deep. She said, be easy, baby, there ain't nothing worth stealing here. You're the one I've been waiting for. You're the one that I desire. The first 2 months you realize another brother I need and someone's got hold of my heart. Someone's got hold of my heart. Someone's got hold of my heart. Got hold of my heart. Yeah, yeah. My heart. Yeah. I can hear the hot-blooded simmer on the banks and gloom. Poison love of red roses for the lady in Memphis in June. While defeating the devil, the guy who's wearing a powder blue wig. I've been to Babylon, now I got to confess, I can still hear that voice crying in the wilderness. While it lodged from a distance, close up, it's never that good. I could learn to drink that blood and call it wine. I never learned to look on your face and call it wine. Someone's got a hold of my heart. Someone's got hold of my heart. Someone's got hold of my heart. Got hold of my heart. Someone's got hold of my heart. Someone's got hold of my heart. Someone's got hold of my heart. Lovely. Just a song to sing out loud. Someone's gotten hold of my heart. And actually I had been talking about heart as well, so maybe that prompted me. The love heart at the center of everything. Love heart also encodes the fleur de lis. That's a different story. So that was Bob Dylan. Yeah. Someone's gotten hold of my heart. Let me just leave the dog in here, and I'll just go through a few pictures, I guess, and leave it there then. Again, not much talked about. No structure, no sort of real progress, I guess. But I'm not too pushed about that anymore. There's no sharing your own brain, I guess, or your own findings really with anyone else. And hoping for what are you hoping for as well, you know, but all you can do is maybe do what I'm doing here and mention a few things and yeah, don't have any expectations. It's probably the best way to be. So let me just leave the dog back in. Come on. Come here. Give me that. Give me that. Give me that. Hey, brah. Hey, brah. Jesus, that's a strong wind, isn't it? That is a strong wind. Okay. Well, that's just my challenge to anyone as well. Let me just reiterate that challenge. Left this long since behind, but yeah, look up Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, read by what do you call him, John Gielgud, and find the missing chapter 3 with the dodo in it, and ask yourself why that might be. Also, find more than the 3 pictures or captions of Will Smith and Barack Obama, these 2 friends together, and you know, fair play to you if you do, because I don't think you'll be successful. Now, so when you're so willing and able to write me off as crazy for hearing some of these things, first of all, you've heard them. If it's so easy to dismiss them and label somebody, or comment personally about somebody because he holds these views, well, if it's so easy to do that, off you go. So that'd be my challenge. So in the meantime, I'm just gonna share my full screen. I'm gonna move that now, first of all, to the left. So I know one can see the link. I just share my screen, just talk about a few pictures, I guess. I'm collecting loads of them, about 200 and odd at this stage, just all related to different things. So just before I do share there, actually, so have a good look at me there. Have a good look at my image, right? And I'm going to bring up, that's the first thing I'll do. I'll bring up a picture of Eratosthenes, right? So we're given this representation of the man. It was pretty historic in his own right, if you think about it, in terms of the first to put the heliocentric system in gear, the sun at the center with the spherical Earth and planets, etc., revolving around. So this is Aristarchus, and I mean, I have to laugh anyway. What are the odds? What are the chances? So let me just make sure that the link is, and that's the first picture I'll bring up. So let me just make sure the link is not being shared. Necessity is the mother of genius. So that occurred to me just to put the window itself off to the side. So when the link is being shared, you can't make a mistake, really. It's the person who wants to try and snipe will be forced, well, to abandon task, because there's too many variables you'd have to fill in the rest of the address. So just make sure everything's good there. My entire screen, that's cool. Lovely. And now I can just go through my pictures without fear of being sniped in any sense. So let me just, because I just mentioned it there, let me go to the picture of this most pertinent of historic characters in relation to flat Earth. And I even did a side by side, but here he is here, look. They're both the same. But here he is here. A fucking million miles. That's not a great caption. That's the dog, by the way. Here he is here, look. It's not a million miles away, is it? With the bald head and the beard, etc. I know, like, we all have common features, etc. But I just found it funny, and I did take a snapshot. I'm more bearded now at this stage, so it would probably be good to do an update. But fucking hell, not a million miles away, is it? I just noted that as a curiosity. But this picture itself, I was looking into. I have made, which is looking at the eye itself, and because it looked familiar to me, and especially the sort of pattern here, we can see a sort of a light and shade area. This is intrinsic within the picture itself. I mean, this is not just a copying artifact, and that sort of rang a bell, or was familiar to me. And I made, where did I make a further comparison? I think I did anyway. Oh, here we go, right next door. So there we have the Eye of Aristarchus. This is just the comparison for myself. This is for no one else. The Eye of Aristarchus is the eye that we can find on the moon. And then we have the Eye of the man Aristarchus himself, who never existed. And yeah, there's a pattern along here which connects to this. See this pattern here? And this pattern here also connects here. So I say that these two are one and the same thing. One is just an expression of the other. Just to show you where that comes from, I can easily do that. I'd hate it if I just had to share pictures individually. Shouldn't be able to do. So here we go. Where's that? There we go. Yeah, there we go. So as you can see, this is an excellent version of the moon. It's the one I've been using all along. So I don't know if it's been tampered with. I think you can't. I'm not to trace it back as to exactly where it came from. When I was just looking at for moon pictures at the time, I'm just looking for examples where you could zoom in and retain clarity. Right. So wherever the exact source of this is, everything else seemed to be genuine and bona fide. But I did find a few peculiar things, and one of them is this here. So as we zoom out first, just here, look. Now I know what this is here. I also know what all of these things are, and pretty much they're all about this here. Remember I was talking earlier on about Herodotus and Prince. This is Prince here, Crater Prince, the sea. This is Herodotus. Or sorry, this is Herodotus. And this is Aristarchus just here. And all said to be in a pit. This is what I say is the pit of the bottomless pit of biblical talk. This is the pit of destruction, if you will. This is so. Imagine Aristarchus was, I call it the giant tree of life. I'm not hung on that, but imagine it was. So now it would be sort of obviously a shadow or a shade of its former self, former glory. Lots of sort of destruction and darkness associated with this. But other than that, when we're dealing with reflections and mirrors, I've asked you to imagine a sort of parallel mirrors and sticking a pencil or your lighter or your finger in between the two, you will get a sort of an infinite picture, presented on either side in that two-dimensional way. And this illusion. So something similar is what is referenced here. And indeed, as I say, if all the luminaries turn out to be one luminary, which is this alone, just here, this is all there is, look. This is all there is. So when you look at Herodotus, again, look just down to the moon, and go with your P900 and you can take a picture of that tonight. You won't be able to make it out with the naked eye, but there's plenty of captures there. Yeah, this is all what we're dealing with. We're dealing with one source alone. This is this here. It's this area, pretty much what I'm wrapping around. And everything else is reflected artifacts of different magnifications, different perspectives, but all fundamentally of the same thing. And this is the neighboring crater that's called Herodotus, a very strange looking, anomalous ridden, inverted commas, crater on the moon. Well, it's actually just the rim of Aristarchus, almost isolated from it. So you're looking at a sort of component part of the original source itself. But yeah, as we zoom over here, or as we move over here, you can even see here, look, is Aristarchus as well, but in a more reflective form. It's a less solid looking form than this. But fundamentally, they're the same thing. Aristarchus is also to be seen over here, look. Just here. This is it here. Here's the pit again, look. Here's it around. You have to sort of look a bit closely. But here, that's what we're seeing. There's Herodotus again next to it. Do you understand now what I mean by different perspectives? It's like you're playing a video game, right? And you're looking at a target or a town that you want to land on in your helicopter from a far distance, and gradually, as you move closer and closer, you get a different perspective of it. Each perspective will be separate and distinct from previous perspectives, but fundamentally, it'll all be about describing the same thing. So this is what we're looking at on the moon. What we're looking at, the same thing, same crater. How this came about, this realization, first of all, that's a story in itself, but fundamentally, I made comparisons between Crater Tycho and Crater Aristarchus. That's detailed in one of the hangouts there. Crater Copernicus and Crater Aristarchus, Crater Tycho. And this is exactly what I realized. And this is all a process for me as well, that, we are looking at the same thing, just from a different perspective. And I almost compared Tycho here and Copernicus, first of all, from a slightly different perspective, but it's like looking at one with visible light and the other looking at the negative or the X-ray of the same thing. It's these sort of visual effects that we're getting. But anyway, that was early on in the process. I then soon realized that this here, pretty much this here is all we have. This is what it is. So this crater is ours. Is this crater? Every single dot here? It's from the little to the large, from the micro to the macro. And I think this is provable as well. So fundamentally, I've certainly proven it to myself anyway, over and over again. And this needs to be sort of unraveled. This is a kaleidoscopic, the best way I can describe kaleidoscopic expression of the same thing, which is fundamentally this sort of pit-like area being reflected around. And so when we come over to here, then, and we see this pattern, and let me just rotate that around. That's it there. There we go. There you go. Clear as day, isn't it? Look at that. So that's the section I was comparing. So there we go again. That's the section there I was comparing to this eye of ARISTARCHUS. And it's just that I found the particular shading pattern here interesting. But I also have other information, not quite other. Let me bring that up as well. So this is another place where this is encoded as well. And it's called the Flammarion engraving. So here we have it. It's the Flammarion engraving. If you don't know anything about that, according to the story, this was said to come on the scenes in 1888 as an engraving onto steel, etched onto steel. I think with no author or no artist. It was credited to an anonymous source. So very, very encoded indeed. And along the top here, actually, I realized lately that we're looking at some of these patterns can be seen in the clouds. This pattern in particular, you can see in the clouds, and you've often seen, or you've maybe heard of the baby bear pattern to be seen in the cloud. You can see that everywhere in your own cloud. And maybe Sandra P1000, this is the Palmy you were saying that you kept seeing in the clouds. It's possible here, this pattern. But yeah, these patterns are to be seen in the clouds from my perspective anyway. And this is the Flammarion, as I said, released in 1888. And what everyone seems to have missed is just a big fuck off tree in the center. Look at it. And this is very encoded as well. You could spend hours going through this, but look at what we find at the corner here. See this eye? See this eye pattern? Now you're going to say I'm seeing things, but remember, all of these things are encoded works. They're presented to us anonymously by the same hand that's presenting all of the clues for us. So when the time is right, we'll come across these things. So this eye relates to this eye. Let me show you where it relates to. And this is the eye of providence as well. This is what I detail as the eye of providence. It's a sort of it's not a literal thing in the sense that as you go and touch it, but it's a pattern that's been expressed. You can see a picture of Stonehenge here. This is, we know about the fakery. There's another Obama-Will Smith connection. This is how we got to know about the fakery, when Obama was walking by one of the stones and you could see there that it was like a fabricated prop on a movie set. Again, too obvious for us, but maybe to get us to connect dots. And I've equated this before with ARISTARCHUS. That's just Stonehenge. And let me bring up ARISTARCHUS now for you. Up here. There we go. So I'm just looking. Remember that eye I was pointing out? Let me just bring that up again. Here we go. In the Flammarion, flame of Marion. There we have the flame reference as well. But look at the big fuck off tree, right? You missed that, didn't you? Also, a lot to be said here of the relation between the sun, the stars, and the moon, the top here. And for me, it is encoding that this is the source of the other two anyway, the stars and the moon. But what might the source of this itself be, the sun? Well, again, we have our clues. We have the big fuck off tree in the center, and yeah, as we look down to where he's sort of broaching, he's making the 3 sign with his fingers, 3 3. Remember, I was saying S on both sides, but of particular interest is this area here again, the eye. And now as we look at Aristarchus, look at this up here. Here we go. Take you a while to spot it, but once you do spot it, there's no denying it. And even here, look on the left side, we have what looks like an E sticking out, and I say that this is not by chance or incidental. So that's where I got to making these comparisons from. As I said, just from myself. And listen to me. What really is going on with Aristarchus? You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. But let me say where I'm at. First of all, you can see this is the Eye of Providence here. The Eye of Providence of Masonic fame, etc. Masonic is am Son. I am the Son. Christ, Jesus is the Son. The Son is Aristarchus. Aristarchus is the external and the internal. So in a real way, we can be said to be the Son of God, if you will, Son of the Creator. But there is the Eye of Providence here, and what you're looking at here is the universe, friends. That's what I claim anyway. Every star in the system, every luminary stems from here and here alone, and just maybe surrounding areas. But there's more to that story as well, because ultimately everything could reduce down to this central. And let me bring that up now that I have it. Here we go. This is Aristarchus central peak. Ultimately, everything could reduce down to this. So what you're looking at here is just a NASA offered, what do you call it? Image, inverted commas, of this central area here. So that he's after farting again. Oh my goodness. What am I going to do with him at all? If I put him out, you see, he gets all dirty and then he wrecks the place. So I'm fucking on a loser. I'm on a loser no matter which way I turn. Anyway, yeah, so you can see all of these, little bumps and bruises and dots and lashes and etc. I think this plays a pivotal part in things as well. So this itself being kaleidoscopically expressed might result in us seeing this as a whole. Do you remember I talked about Stonehenge? Let me just reduce it down, put it side by side for you, just to give you an idea where I'm coming from anyway. And for me, these things are known. For me, it's like Aristarchus. Why is the name kept quiet? Well, kept quiet for a reason. Kept quiet on purpose, because when the time is right, someone will make the connection, and then it's by the silence that they should be known, So here we go. Side by side, we can even see it's like a G. Remember I talked about there's the I here. The Masonic G can also be seen clearly, but most especially what can be seen is the 8 in the center. Here we have the 8 of the infinity sign, but also, as I mentioned earlier on, the dodo. So many other things encoded here. But when you look at this, on the left here, Aristarchus, you are looking at the universe. That's the way I look at it. And it's very peculiar what exactly is going on. But if you think in terms of fractals, and each layer here, we all have the illusion that we're looking into something here, right? So we're kind of, if you drop the stone here, it will go all the way to the bottom. Well, that's an ever-ending bottom, right? It goes all the way down. So if you imagine that each layer subsequent is the same as the layer before, this is the picture it builds up. And you imagine it's going in. As I flip this around, going inwards, or as I flip it around and we look at it again, now we have the illusion that it's coming outwards and extending. And this, in a big way, is the penis and the vagina. Literally, I don't mean to get dirty at this time of night, but no better time. This is the penis and the vagina. One is one is no good without the other. One is the jigsaw piece. and one is the hole the jigsaw piece fits into. So the two have been sort of torn asunder from one another. And this is where the S comes into things. This is why we're divided from ourselves. We're constantly trying to reunite and mate, if you will. MATE, yeah, that E is the T as opposed to the L, right? So mate, MATE, all of these basic words are heavily sort of encoded. And the more basic the word, actually, the more on the surface the truth is. But isn't that interesting how we notice now, just by rotating it, we rotate it again? Yeah, it appears to be going inwards. And as we rotate it around, it appears to be jutting outwards or extending. So yeah, this is actually what's said to happen as the moon rotates around. Right, so there's the moon. As it comes into our sky, it might be oriented whatever way it's orientated in your own sky. Let's just put it back here. Well, as we look at Aristarchus, this is pretty much the way it comes in. As we look at Aristarchus, it's orientated in that direction as it enters my sky. And as the night passes, or whenever the time passes, it will leave my sky, maybe something like this, which is or maybe just go back up one more to give it a 180-degree flip, like that. So yeah, we will see both extended and distended images of Aristarchus. So isn't that interesting? And as I said, it's all encompassing. It's all encompassing. It is the everything. And this is what the penis worship is about. Fundamentally, all of this is about the very basics. And there's no more basic consideration than how we actually got here, and that's via the physical process of the sperm meeting the egg, and that the coming together of the male and the female, especially parts, right, reproductive or bodily parts. So yeah, this is the story that's been told within Aristarchus, and that's what I mean about it not just being an external story. There's much more to it. But we can see there's a destruction here, or what appears to be a destruction, and this is where the G comes into it. The G is opposed to the H, right? The G is missing an aspect. And if we think of the G in relation to the theta, say for instance, we can see a component missing. This is where the G and the L come together as well. And as I say that, there's an LG TV in the room here, and millions have these big screen LG TVs. But you could see how by manipulating the L that you could complete the G into a theta form, right? So I think this is significant as well. But yeah, fundamentally, that's what we're listening. But Stonehenge on the right here, we come down the fakery pathway, that the thing might have been only built or constructed in the last 50 or 100 years, 150 years, as opposed to the thousands of years old. Yeah. When we zoom into the center here, we can match up quite a few stones. We can see the swoop here, might match to this swoop across here, or up here more especially, look. And we can, just as yourself, you can recognize that curiosity. Aristarchus happens to be an anagram of Icarus Wraths, right? Icarus Wraths. We know the story about Icarus. He flew too close to the sun, so there is all automatically a sun reference within the anagram of Aristarchus as Icarus Wraths. And a wrath, if you look it up, RATH, is a ring fort. Isn't that interesting? So there we have a ring fort in the form of Stonehenge, the fabrication that is Stonehenge. So yeah, what we're looking at here is everything, especially in terms of the luminaries. Just to stick to the luminaries, you're looking at the yeah, you name it. You're looking at all the luminaries from one source, and that's Aristarchus. Yeah? Aristarchus, and CHUS, very interesting as well. It has a connection to the word cross, but also it's a diminutive, or a sort of a shortened version of the name Jesus in Spanish. So everything is known. There's nothing new under the sun, and everything is written with this, I say, with this solution in mind. It's at the very heart and the center of everything. I could oh yeah, let me read you something here. I hope you can see the notepad that came up there. I mean, there's so many different clues. I haven't even been through this. It was just one particular area. Just because I say it's clues are given everywhere. I think I've written it in here. Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, the Sigma, the southern star Sigma Octantis. It's Sigma Octantis Polaris, and then we have the northern star Polaris, and that made a lot of sense to me. So we're dealing with light and shadow. We're dealing with solidity and its opposite. When we're looking at and I mentioned this last time, I think that I mentioned it with Jamie anyway, Dorje Doka, I think that's his name, he put the view from, what's the name of the fucking, Delirium. So on the equator looking north, and one side of the screen, and the other screen then he used on the equator looking south, and he found that one was a mirror of the other. That makes great sense to me. And I just pointed out to myself here that this is why they've named these stars. Everything is about Polaris, ARISTARCHUS. What's in a name? Well, you tell me. Also, already mentioned Paris and Polaris earlier on as well. We have Paris within Polaris. But that's not what I wanted to point out. Just an idea of how oh, here we go. Yeah, this is it. This is what I was looking for. So just an idea of how it is. I saw an ad on the television, and it was for the Royal Air Force, and this is their logo. So let's just read this. It says, "Per ardua ad astra, through adversity to the stars, or through struggle to the stars," is the motto of the Royal Air Force and other Commonwealth Air Forces, such as the RAF, RNZS, and the Indian Air Force, right until 1947. The phrase has its origins with an individual who wrote "Sic itur ad astra," thus one journeys to the stars, from Aeneid Book 9, a line 11, 641 gives you 11, and spoken by Apollo to Aeneas's young son, Iulus. So I just said here, "Sic itur ad astra," or "thus one journeys to the stars," which is the motto, or was the motto anyway, of all of these air forces earthwide, is an anagram of Aristarchus Dia. And as I said here, Dia is God in Irish, and then there's a H missing, but other than that, it fits in well with the sentiment. Thus one journeys to the stars, and also with the well, for me anyway, the idea that these people didn't exist, the Virgils or the Homers and all of this, these are just again more fabricated historical characters, and a greater story is being told through them. But it was interesting to find a 9/11, but it's things like that, and especially when you look at the logo. I don't have the logo here. That put me onto this in the first place, but it does feature the wings, and you can see Aristarchus. Maybe I have it in here actually. I probably do. You know, let me just bring it up just to show you. Oh yeah, do you remember this recently? Remember this came up recently? Remedy Drive commodity. And this was in association with a pinhole by an astro or some sort of meteorite in the ISS, and how someone had to stick his Mickey in. Scott Kelly had to stick his Mickey in the hole to save all the crew. So it's better than sticking his Mickey in the I'm sorry now, but in his wife, you know, the one Gabby Giffords, who was shot through the brain by a non-existent man. Anyway, sorry about that. But yeah, very, very reminiscent of yeah, I think I put a side by side here somewhere. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I should have now. I think maybe here. Yeah, maybe here. This is Herodotus. Again, a reflected artifact of Aristarchus. And we can see this as well in many, many clear forms. We're told that this is just an extra crater on the rim of Herodotus. Whereas when you look into it, it's not. It's a reflected artifact. It's the same thing, sort of overlapping the same thing. It's like you're looking through a target with a sharded up mirror. You know, you're going to get a million and one different images, and depending on the splinter and the fracture sort of pattern, that'll depend on what you see the other side of it. But all of these little things here are all the one everything. All of these little dots you see on the moon are one and the same source. But I was just pointing out how similar that is to this. So you think someone might be telling us something? I reckon, and you can call me sort of delusional if you want, but I reckon that as some of the clues are solved, then some more sort of information can come out. At least I hope that's the way anyway. You know what I mean? So people, the clue masters recognize this, and then they can give out more of the information that more and more people might tend to maybe possibly investigate. Um, but okay, I don't have that comparison to made. Hmm. Yeah, well, as I said, I could go on and on, and I thought of one. I don't think there's anyone interested at all. I could go on and on. And that's where my mind is at anyway these days. And I could go back to any one of these pictures and spend ages just maybe proving a case, proving a point, but proving it to who, you know? This is the question. No one at this stage, no one at all. I would encourage everyone to do their own searching. And let me just bring up this picture, for instance. There's lots of things we can clarify. At the top here, we have the sun, and we have it compared to Crater Copernicus. And again, this is one of the captures. When we do the comparison, we find many similarities between the two. We're led inexorably to say that one is associated or related to the other in some deep and intrinsic way. At least I was, and yeah, that's where I do encourage everyone to pick out your own high altitude balloon footages, look through them, look for captures of the sun where it's particularly clear, and you'll see this pattern um, associated with it. Let me just get it up here. Why no one is sort of checking this out for themselves, I don't know. Well, I kind of do in one sense. I knew from the earliest times that because some of the clues that I have been uncovering or finding are woven into the narrative, the people were put in place to yeah, here we go. Yeah, so something like this you get each and every time. Well, quality allowing. You will get this picture and this shard-like pattern associated with the sun. You sort of you need to think in terms of three-dimensional. When you think in terms of three-dimensional, looking at this, you're actually looking into as a crater. This is for all intents and purposes what you're looking into. And I said this is the sun above the atmosphere from high altitude balloon footages, where there's no interference or very little interference from the moisture in the water, or the moisture or the water particulation in the air. So yeah, we have the shard-like pattern. I'm sure you can notice it here, and this can be matched up by yourself to. Hang on, I can just move back here. Look, I can move back. This can be matched up to as we move over to. So you look at shard-like pattern here around Aristarchus. So if this is Aristarchus here, and if this is also Aristarchus, there should be a shard-like pattern surrounding this as well. Well, indeed there is here. Look, on this side. This is a smaller, diminutive version of this, right? And we're looking at it from a different perspective. But indeed, we have all these shard-like patterns, and yeah, they hold throughout all of this. As we move down to any one of the craters, we can see it down here, just in a different form. And you have much overlapping, much overlaying as well. This is what adds to the confusion. That's why I talk about like a fan. It's sort of like collapsing a fan in a three-dimensional spiral in on itself until you get one point source. And that's what I was talking about. So this is what I was talking about, the eye. Let me get off of this then. Very interesting. Let me show you an interesting point. When I was tracing the star system, I honed in on this point here. To this point. I was tracing all the stars. So I found the Milky Way to go, this is at the start of it, the Milky Way to go from here up to here. Right? We can even see, let me just swing it around. There you go. You can see, now we can see that familiar sort of arch shape to it. But that was the start of it. when I re-examined it as well, I also found the Milky Way to go this way. I was going, how can I be mistaken? Because I'm absolutely sure. You see, when you zoom in, there's lots of little clues and hints that you're on the right path, because all of these bumps and marks, or whatever you want to call them, are all specific to a pattern. So comparing a picture of the Milky Way, it will have many different components to the pattern itself, and these things can be matched up. But yeah, to find that the Milky Way was going both ways, spanned both ways, had me wondering until I realized what was going on. When we look at this swathe here, for instance, let's just say from here to here, what you're looking at is, actually, what you're looking at is, in one of its forms anyway, let's say from here around to here. That's what you're looking at. So you're looking at an extreme close-up, and indeed there is the eye then, you see? So these are the connections I'm making. So you're getting to see it from every different perspective, every different magnification. And because we are dealing with mirrors and mirror images, we know how confusing they can be, so they need to be unraveled. And yeah, there's that. As I said, the crater, there's the shard-like pattern associated with it. And we can see that pattern itself around here with ARISTARCHUS. So it's a lot to wrap your head around, but this is Herodotus here, for instance. Herodotus, this is also Herodotus. And the yin-yang symbol comes into play when it comes to the moon as well. Because if you ever thought about, let me bring up the yin-yang symbol about it. I think I have it. That ties into the spiraling nature of these reflections we're seeing, the yin-yang. And if I have it here, well, sure, I can just bring up, let me just, yeah. Yin-yang symbol. I'm going to go shortly anyway. So here we go, yeah. So we think of this white here as part of the greater white, and this black here has been part of this underbelly black. So if we imagine it in 3 dimensions coming out at us, we can see a sort of a child candy cane or a rock. You know what I mean? So it's this spiraling pattern overlapping, and this is what I talk about, light and shade. And when we go back, yeah, this is what I'm trying to wrap my head around as well. This is the light and the shade. We think we're looking at something sort of solid and something identifiable when we look at the Aristarchus central peak here. But I think there's much more to the story than that as well. But yeah, see this shade? This is a fundamental part to the light and the solidity. And this is the world of duality as well that we sort of we wade our way through. So yeah, again, I can't, you know, I'm not going to stick on any, even though I could talk about any one particular area for ages. I'm not going to stick, and I haven't even thought about any of these things in a good while. I haven't sort of developed them further, but that these similarities are present. That's where that all came out from anyway. So we have that eye, the eye, and then the eye of Eratosthenes. So if that's where all that came from, is me just comparing my own look there with the look of this man, Aristarchus of Samos, and it not being a fucking million miles away. So that's amazing in itself. But yeah, I could go into many other areas, but I think maybe, oh, there's that pattern I was saying in the clouds. Look, you can see this today, and that's a bit exaggerated here, but fundamentally you can see this pattern no matter where you are. You can see it because everything is sort of in a process of transformation and transmogrification. You know, you need to keep your eyes open to catch, you know, bones of the pattern. But when you do, you will see this, not exactly this, but similar enough. Now I think I'm feeling this is might be touched up. And actually on my own camera, I have some pictures where you can see this. But you go out tomorrow and you'll see this. You know, you'll see in its sort of transforming form. But you will see it. And again, it all ties back to Aristarchus. These patterns are expressing aspects of the template, if you will. So I recommended that's where many can start. Just go out and observe these repeating patterns. First of all, recognize that it is a phenomenon. It's not just somebody saying it. I've satisfied myself. It's absolutely the case. I can see it every day. You know, there's no unseeing it. And once you've done that, then you recognize the patterns. Then you can go about trying to explain them. But you needn't do any of it as well. It's up to yourself. Here's the medal, I think. Oh yeah, here's the medal. So this is what, remember the medal I was talking about with the reference to vigil? Let me just bring it up in the notepad again. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, it's the motto for the Air Forces, which is sic, and it comes from sic itur ad astra, thus one journeys to the stars. And as I said, this is Aristarchus Dia, and Dia is God in Irish. And this is the coin that they were advertising. And well, as I turned it upside down, there is what looks to me something very similar to these three depictions here. This eye, this is the eye of providence, if you will. Yeah, so that's the coin itself, but very interesting as we flip it back around. Then we have the crown at the top, crown of the head. This is what it is. This is what it's pointing us towards. And yeah, the crown of thorns. That isn't it interesting? A thorn is the anagram of north. It's all things to consider, but yeah. That was just one reference. So yeah, that's what I'm constantly seeing now, is just all of these different references to the same thing. And to me, it's natural as well if the story is written around this one thing. And yeah, then it's only natural that all these clues will be presented to the honest inquirer, and we're all honest inquirers. Even if you're playing within all of this, if you're a role player. And taking on a character, I wonder how much you know. I mean, do you know everything? I can't imagine you do, but again, we don't know what we're dealing with. You know what we're dealing with. That's why I don't like to judge anybody. We could be dealing with immortal beings, we could be dealing with angels, we could be dealing with anybody. We could be dealing with demons, we could be dealing with just extremely evil people. You know, we don't know. We don't know. So take what you need and move on. That's what I say. Yeah, I could go into a lot more detail than that. As you can see, I'm very disorganized, which is my way. But remember I was talking about the chart pattern? Here we have the IHS, Jesuit sun. Well, it's the same thing. This is what they're pointing me towards. Just bring it up again. Yeah. Here we have it again, just from a different capture. This is the Jesuit sun. This is what it's referencing, which is Aristarchus. The sun is Aristarchus. Moon is a reflection of the sun. The sun is a reflection of Polaris, and Polaris itself is a direct reflection of Aristarchus, where it's emanating from. We can see the shard-like patterns been reflected in the IHS, this Jesuit sun iconography, and well, there we have the IH again. Remember I was talking about the IH earlier on. There we have the S, and again, the S representing one half the divided state, one half of the whole. But we have the IH equivalency, and just let me go through the code dodo. If you haven't heard it again, because it's pertinent. And I also took a screenshot of. Here we go again. So these are this is the IHS is the monogram of the name of Jesus, right? So the visual representation of Jesus. And here we go. Look and behold. Look, there's the JHS, it's called here. So in one sense, it's a clue for us. We have this equivalency, here we go, between the I and the J. So the co-dodo, I maintain the co-dodo. If someone else came up with it, I don't know anything about it. So that's why I call it the co-dodo, because just suis dodo. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, E is 5, F is 6, G is 7, H is 8, I is 9. J and I are equivalent, so the J is 9 as well. Back down then, the K is 8. L is 7. Makes perfect sense, the L being 7. L is 7, M is 6, N is 5, O is 4, P is 3, Q is 2, R is 1, back up again, S is 2, makes perfect sense. T is 3, that makes great sense as well, as they all do. V is 4, U is 5, U is 4, V is 5, W is 6, with the M being 6, W is 6, upside down. That's what I pointed about, a W pointing to the lower aspects, the M as the double arrows upwards, right? So Adam, right? A-M, am, I am. So there we have, M is, W is 6, X is 7, Y is 8, so Y with the H and the K is 8, and Z is 9, then to finish it all off. But look, this is the name of Jesus. So the visual monogram representation of the name Jesus. And here we have the broken sun, the triangle, and the eye in the center. And that, I can point you out where that triangle is. Not that I've done it anyway, but it's there to be seen. There you go. See it, look. As you're making your way towards the eye, we have what seems to be lines leading up. Do you see it? I don't have to draw it in, look. You can see it. The eye is at the apex. So this is what it represents. Aristarchus. It's the answer. So what am I going to do? All the cloud patterns as well. Everything can be found inside here. All the patterns you see in the clouds are all expressions or results of this core pattern being expressed. So yeah, the IHS, the last time I talked about the IHS and the all-seeing eye and the triangle and the cross, yeah, and the square and the compass. Yeah, my channel got porn bombed, so that's not going to happen again because you can't get the link. It's fascinating, isn't it? It's fascinating, and these things are surely connected. They have to be, and especially, as I said, when Aristarchus is in terms of just the official story, described as the most mysterious crater on the moon, the most mysterious object in our system, then we can sit up and take notice that now that we've come to flat Earth and we're looking for real answers as to what any of these things might be. They're all pointers for us, and I pointed out as well, within the Game of Thrones, we have a prominent family called the Stark family. ARISTARCHUS is a character, a fictional character crafted by, I can't remember who now, but all of these different things, ARISTA records, all pointers towards the same thing, but without a context, well, it's sort of meaningless, but it's like the dodo. It's like the dodo, without a context, it's meaningless, but put together in the proper context, well, it's the exact opposite. It's very, 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 very meaningful. Yeah, just shared a few of my pictures here. There's the Milky Way I was talking about earlier on. I haven't gone back on some of these in a while now. Look at that. Yeah, that's where. So that's just. So I had the moon. I have a picture of the moon here. I can go back and get that and put this side by side. But you see these patterns here. Yeah, I have the moon and the appropriate area on the moon. Then these are all the constellations. So these are specific constellations or patterns, and I match them up with the moon itself. So I've been through that process, and understand that it's the whole of the night sky can be seen on the moon, but I didn't realize at the time the moon itself can be traced back to one aspect of the moon, which is this crater Aristarchus. So yeah, that's all some of the work I did earlier on. Well, come back maybe a year or two now. That stuff itself is groundbreaking because I know, you see, the thing I know that breaks all astrophysics apart. anyone putting time into this will find exactly the same as I have found, you know. So it's fascinating stuff. But what are you going to do? I have to move on my own search, and I'm pretty sure it's sort of presenting anything really cogent, or definitely anything 100% sort of blatantly, undeniably true. You know, it's up to the individual to do their own search. And as I said, there's so much resistance, if you will, so many hurdles and hurdle keepers within this arena that maybe that's not the purpose of the game anyway. It's the individual's journey, and yeah, that was a step along my own personal journey. And I don't think, as far as I know anyway, anyone has taken it up. But although there is one guy in France who also found that the star system mapped out in the moon, came via it. I can't remember what his name is now. I have his channel, what do you call it, bookmark somewhere. But he came to find these star patterns on the moon by a completely different and much more professional sort of method. I was just looking at two images, my definition, if I could find them, of the two areas I wanted to compare, whereas he went via a much more efficient and undeniable method, actually. So we both found out the same thing, and he did it recently. I did that last year. So yeah, that's going back to then. But yeah, there's much more than that, and there's even stuff here that I should be doing myself. But I know it's yeah. Anyway, yeah. I know I'm just going to get confirmation, so I sort of take a step back as well. I don't like to get too involved in these things, because again, who am I proving anything to? At this stage, I've proven almost beyond doubt to myself that pretty much what I'm saying is close to the truth anyway, if not the truth. And there might be a much greater context. I think everyone has different clues to present, and all the findings are valuable. But in terms of my own personal picture, yeah. Oh, last thing I'll just say as well. This is why we're given. This is Crater Plato. What is the brand? This is Crater Plato, and I think all of these craters that are given names from prominent historical inverted commas figures are given so because these craters themselves are great clues for us. You know what I mean? This is a very strange, anomalous looking thing when you think about what a crater is said to be. But when we think of it in a different context, it's yeah, it is a great clue indeed. We can see this other crater here, and it's nothing of the sort. These are all reflected artifacts. It's like a 4K image, you know, reflected image. And it's fair enough as well. If you were looking at your face in an absolutely crystal clear, still water body, and no one told you that you were looking at a reflection, how would you know it was? How would you know which was solid and which wasn't? You know, there is always something that causes the reflection to be made in the first place. So this is what we sort of identify, or at least this is what I identify in terms of Aristarchus. All of these little dots, as small as you like, as big as you like, they're all the same thing, all aspects or components of the same thing, which is Aristarchus. So all for one and one for all in one sense, you know. So yeah, I think I might leave it there. It's just getting a bit late, and yeah, I just wanted to come on, really, just do what I do, and yeah, I don't think anyone was interested to come on and chat. So if you were just listening, grand. That's why I generally don't sort of get involved in chat as well. There seems to be different conversations going on outside the one that I'm having, so that's fine. Yeah, I think so. I will shut it down on that and just go back into chat and say good night to everybody. If there's any questions, actually hit me now, and I can stay on and try answer them for you. But otherwise, I'm going to say good night. Let me just great, excellent with the Google Hangout link half hanging over the side that you can't see it, you bollocks. Anyway, everything's stopped now. That's cool. Yeah. So any other questions, let me know in the chat. I doubt there will be, but harder. Please, could you please explain the dodo connection now, man? And judging by the screen name you choose for yourself, you probably know the story better than most, whoever you might be. So I'm not going to go through that again. Just to say briefly that the bird never existed. The dodo, the dumb, stupid bird, never existed, and is a sort of literary creation to represent something of much more deeper significance, which is the earth itself. Fundamentally, the external story of the dodo represents the changing face of the earth post inundation. Right, so you had a massive destruction, you had an inundation of waters, and the layout of the land, if you will, in terms of the new look, changed fundamentally. So this is what the dodo represents, and we can see this in terms of the Gleason's map. When you rotate the Gleason's map upside down, a certain bird jumps out at you. That's the dodo itself. So that's what it represents externally, but internally, it represents the divided state of us. So this is at the heart of matters, and us understanding this divided state can help us sort of out of it or deal with it. And it goes much further beyond that. And well, fundamentally, I think I sort of know what to do, or know what sort of might have to be done, and it comes back to the very basic things as well. Kingdom come. Kingdom come, everything's about our sexuality, and we all came here via the sexual process. So what are the components responsible for the creation of such miracles as us? Communion, the body of Christ. Jesus was turned into flesh and consumed. What does it mean? What does it mean? So again, do your own thinking. And think about the substance as a man, right? Think about the substance that you want to get rid of the most. It's the sexual fluid, isn't it? It's the semen. And right in the heart of Aristarchus, we have the word tar. Right? Isn't that interesting that tar used to be what is an archaic name for a semen, right? An able-bodied semen was called a tar. So there we have, right in the heart of Aristarchus, the tar as well. And in one sense, you could say there that the central peak of Aristarchus wouldn't be too far off of a representation of a semen itself. So yeah, this is where we're getting at. And look, it's only by questioning everything that we can come to find out anything. And the answer goes all the way inward. That's all I can say. So yeah. On that note, I think we're not going to get more solved here. I thank everybody for tuning in. And keep questioning, and the answers are there. I think it's all about asking the right questions. And once you can do that, well, who knows where you might end up. It's the worst of times was the best of times. It's all about ultimately the eternal presence, and in one sense that's what the orgasm is, isn't it? It's a sort of a moment outside of time, and it all connects in with time. Time is me, it is an anagram of me, it, and me, it, whole e, spirit, it, right? We can take these things in a different direction then, but yeah. Okay, I'm going to leave you with the usual, and we'll see you the next time, whenever that might be. So thanks again, and I'll leave you with the parting glass. Oh, the money where I spend, I've spent it in good company, and all the harm that I've done, alas, it was too much for me. And all I've done for want of wit to memory now I can't recall. So I fell to me with a parting glass, good night, and joy be with you all. If I had money enough to spend and measure time to sit a while, there is a fair rosy cheeks, her ruby lips, I own she has my heart and soul. So flow to me, the parting glass, good night, and joy be with you. Oh, look how right there I have. They're sorry for my going away. I know the sweethearts there I had. They wished me one more day to stay. But since it falls into my lot that I should rise and you should know, I'll gently rise and I'll softly call. Good night, and joy be with you all. I'll gently rise and I'll softly call. Good night, and joy be with you. Good night, friends. I love you, Steve.